My name is Emily. I live with my husband in a spacious house. We have a son named Richard who reached adulthood a few years ago and moved out. Initially, I felt lonely without him, but I've since adjusted. Still, it always brightens my day when he calls to say he's coming home. One day, Richard called to tell us he was visiting and had someone special to introduce. From the moment we heard this, my husband and I were filled with excitement. Before noon, Richard arrived with a lovely woman by his side. Although I had an inkling from his words, I never truly expected him to bring someone home. My son, beaming with pride, introduced her. Her name is Karen. Isn't she wonderful? She's my wife. I was momentarily stunned, struggling to grasp his words. After a brief pause, I asked, Richard, did you say Karen is your wife? Not your girlfriend? Richard nodded with a grin. Yes, Mom. Maybe you're going a bit deaf. I couldn't bring myself to laugh at my son's teasing. I haven't heard about you getting married. Did you know about this? I asked my husband. He shook his head, equally puzzled. No, I didn't hear anything either. We both turned to Richard, seeking an explanation. With a proud smile, he said, That's why I came to announce our marriage registration today. By the way, we had a grand wedding in Bali with our friends. We were speechless. Richard, oblivious to our stunned reaction, continued to rave about the wonderful wedding in Bali. My head began to ache, and I carefully asked, You've already registered and had the wedding. Why weren't we invited? Karen, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Do we need to invite strangers? I was taken aback by her words. She continued calmly, Isn't it a waste of money? I couldn't hold back my emotions. No, we are Richard's parents, I said, my voice trembling. Karen seemed unconvinced and said with a dissatisfied look, But you're strangers to me. I was taken aback and fell silent. My son must have finally noticed the tension in the room and hurriedly explained, Karen has no parents or siblings. It would have been sad if she was the only one without family at the wedding. That's why I didn't invite you guys. Hearing about Karen's situation left me at a loss for words. I thought if that's the case, maybe it could be understood. Of course, I wasn't entirely satisfied, but I told myself it was too late since the wedding was already over. After the newlyweds left, I confided in my husband. I wonder if those two will be okay. He shared my concern but said, It's their decision. They're already married. All we can do is watch over them. Although I agreed with him, I couldn't just leave it at that. So I decided to try to bridge the gap with Karen. I got my son's phone number and decided to reach out. When Karen realized it was me on the phone, her tone immediately turned sour. What do you want? I realized my call might have made Karen uncomfortable, so I quickly explained my reason. I got some delicious treats and I thought I'd bring them over to you next time. Karen replied, Oh, I don't need that. In fact, I don't even plan to give you my address. I couldn't help but ask why. Karen calmly answered, I don't want to give personal information to strangers. Please delete my phone number. Before I could say anything else, she hung up. After that, I couldn't get in touch with Karen. I realized my gesture must have felt like an intrusion to her. Feeling down, I shared my worries with my husband. He comforted me, saying, There's still time. Don't rush. Forcing closeness won't necessarily lead to good results. Just hope that she'll open her heart to us someday. I took a deep breath and nodded. You're right. A month after I stopped trying to contact my son and his wife, my son suddenly reached out. What's going on? I asked. He told me Karen is pregnant. I was thrilled by the happy news. Knowing how tough it can be for a first-time mother without her parents, I asked for their address so I could go help. But my son said, No, I can't give you the address. We don't need help, just money. Give me your bank account number so I can transfer it. I tried to explain to my son how difficult childbirth could be, but he wouldn't listen. Moreover, he said that Karen herself was against it. In the end, I transferred only the money as my son requested. After that, I never heard from him again. There was not even a report of the child's birth. A year passed, and despite my attempts to call, I eventually couldn't reach him at all. It seemed my son no longer thought of us as family. Even if I wanted to confirm it, there was no way to get in touch. Feeling helpless, I went to the local supermarket one day and met a familiar face. At first, I didn't recognize him, but when he called out to me, I realized who he was. It's been a long time. Do you remember me? I'm David Johnson. Hearing the name, my memory came rushing back. He was a friend my son often brought home during high school. I didn't recognize him at first because in my mind he was still a high school student. David, you've grown up so well. I said, looking at him closely. David seemed pleased and a bit shy. Then I noticed the woman standing next to him. She wore a matching ring with David, and her belly was noticeably large. I involuntarily covered my mouth and exclaimed, "Oh my!" David nodded shyly. "This is my wife, Olivia. Our child is due in 2 months." "Olivia, is it? Congratulations." "Thank you," Olivia said, looking momentarily confused before smiling happily. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, we parted ways quickly, not wanting to impose on the expectant mother. 2 months later, I received an email from David. We had exchanged contact information during our reunion because he wanted to share the news of the birth. The email included a photo of their newborn baby, a truly adorable little one. As I looked at the picture, I couldn't help but imagine what it would be like if it were my own grandchild. I looked at the photo of the baby, someone I had never met, and found myself shedding a few tears. I emailed David, offering to send a gift to celebrate the occasion. Shortly after, a flustered David called me. "I didn't reach out with that intention, so please don't trouble yourself." I couldn't help but chuckle at David's apologetic tone. "That's not it. I just want to celebrate, since I can't do anything for my own grandchild." There was a pause on the other end before David asked, "Something happened with Richard, didn't it?" I remained silent, and David continued. "I was hesitant to tell you, but actually," he revealed a shocking story. Olivia was originally Richard's girlfriend. Richard had chosen another woman and unceremoniously dumped Olivia. That woman was Karen. Olivia was devastated after being abandoned by Richard, and I couldn't leave her to deal with it alone. I tried to convince Richard to make things right, but he wouldn't listen. Eventually, I gave up and ended our friendship. David's story ended there. At that moment, I felt a deep sense of anger toward both my son and Karen, despite being my own child. I also realized that my actions had unintentionally reminded Olivia of her painful past. Even though I wasn't aware of it, I had caused her distress. She likely didn't want to see Richard's mother. "I'm truly sorry for mentioning that I wanted to celebrate," I apologized. David quickly reassured me. "You don't need to apologize, Mrs. Smith. Olivia doesn't mind. She was the one who wanted to send the baby's picture. Please don't worry about it." Their kindness only made me feel more guilty. David then added, "I just don't want Olivia to have anything to do with Richard and his wife ever again." I agreed wholeheartedly. "I'll do whatever I can to help, even if it might not be much." I also shared with David the strained relationship I had with my son and his wife. David was visibly shocked by Richard's recent behavior. We quickly shifted the conversation to lighter topics before ending the call. I relayed everything I had learned from David to my husband. I then told him that from now on, I would consider Richard and his family as strangers. My husband agreed. "At least we can take a breather." I glanced around the room, where most of the unpacking was complete, and nodded. Our new life begins here today. The house we have lived in felt too large for just the two of us. When we were considering moving, we were introduced to this newly built high-rise condominium. We had planned to inform our son about the move, but ultimately decided against it. I headed out to buy ingredients for dinner. As soon as I stepped out the front door, someone called out to me, "Mom." I turned around, unsure of what I was seeing, and there was my son, approaching with a slight smile. "Why didn't you tell me you moved?" "I was surprised to find strangers at the old house. I had to search quite a bit to find you," he said. I met his gaze with stern eyes. "I didn't need to tell you. You're a stranger to me." Richard seemed taken aback by my change in attitude and grew flustered. "What are you talking about? I'm your son." I ignored him and started walking. Richard quickly fell into step beside me and continued talking. Mom, I want to apologize for everything that's happened. I was misled by Karen. You must have some extra money if you're living in a new high-rise condo, right?" Despite Richard's attempts to engage, I kept walking. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Richard's tone grew anxious. Karen was a habitual liar. Her claim of having no family was false. She was actually disowned by her parents due to a romantic scandal at her previous job. When I glanced at my son, he misunderstood my silence and continued to criticize Karen. Karen came to me for money after she couldn't make it on her own after quitting her job. I was just deceived. I should be able to live in that high-rise condo too. I stopped and faced him. He seemed hopeful that I was finally ready to listen, but I held his gaze firmly and said, "You chose that dishonest woman despite being in a relationship with someone else. This is the consequence of your actions." Richard looked stunned by my words. I delivered my final message. Your only family now is Karen. You two are perfectly suited for each other. Leaving him there, I walked away and contacted David. I was concerned that Richard might cause trouble for David or Olivia. As I feared, Richard had tried to apologize to Olivia and asked David to mediate between us. He even said something absurd like, "You two got married because of me." David, at his breaking point, announced he was severing ties with my son and warned that he would call the police if Richard continued to harass them. In a panic, Richard fled. Afterward, Richard tried to spread malicious rumors about David and Olivia among their mutual friends but was met with disdain instead. Karen, who was supposed to be his only ally, abandoned him, running off with another man after squandering all of Richard's savings and left their child behind. Seeing the situation worsen, we decided not to intervene despite hearing the rumors. Eventually, Richard came to us with the child in tow. "You must feel sorry for your grandchild, right? Let us stay here," he pleaded. My husband, who had been silent until now, exploded in anger. "Don't be ridiculous. Stop acting like a spoiled child at your age. You're no longer our son but a stranger. Get out." Frightened by our harsh reaction, my son fled, leaving the grandchild behind. My husband quickly locked the front door while I gently picked up the child. The little one, oblivious to the situation, reached out to my husband with a smile. Seeing that innocent smile, my husband and I shared the same thought. While we have no intention of forgiving our son and Karen, the child is innocent. We exchanged a nod and decided to raise this child ourselves. I heard that my son is now doing physical labor, likely struggling to make ends meet with a job he detests. Despite his hardships, he hasn't tried to come back home, though even if he did, the outcome would be the same. My husband and I are fully occupied with caring for our grandchild. Although raising a child at our age is challenging, the child's smile gives us the strength to keep going. For tasks that are too difficult, we rely on the help of David and his wife, for which we are deeply grateful. It seems that a leisurely retirement is still a distant dream, but for now, I want to savor the time with my husband and grandchild.
The invoice sat in my inbox like a loaded gun. $650 for a weekend stay at my own beach house. I had to read it 3 times before the reality sank in. My sister was actually trying to charge me rent for a property I'd paid nearly $2 million to purchase. I'm Helen, and 8 years ago, I fell for the biggest con of my life. Not from strangers, but from my own flesh and blood. "It'll be our family dream home," Brooke had said, her eyes sparkling with that familiar enthusiasm that always preceded asking for money. We were sitting at our favourite cafe, the one where she'd convinced me to fund her yoga studio startup 5 years earlier. A place where we can all gather, make memories, watch the kids grow up. I remember stirring my coffee, already feeling the familiar tug of responsibility. "It's a big investment, Brooke. We'll all pitch in. Julian and I can handle the maintenance, Nesta will take care of the landscaping, and Frankie's already planning the interior design. Mum's so excited. You know how she's always wanted a place by the ocean." I should have seen the red flags. Should have noticed how nobody discussed actual financial contributions. But that's the thing about family manipulation. It's wrapped in enough truth to make the lies palatable. 3 months later, I signed the papers. The beach house was gorgeous. 4 bedrooms, ocean views, a pool that Brooke's daughter Jolie immediately claimed as her spot. Everyone was there for the celebration, popping champagne and making grand plans. To family, my mother Scarlett had toasted, her voice thick with emotion, and to Helen for making this possible. That was the last time I felt truly included. The excuses started small. "Oh, we didn't think you'd want to come for Memorial Day. You're always so busy with work." Or, "Jolie's friends booked the house for spring break months ago. Didn't Brooke tell you?" I buried myself in my real estate business, telling myself it was fine. Family shares, family understands. Until last week, when I finally put my foot down. "I'd like to use the beach house next weekend," I texted Brooke. "Just for 2 days. 3 hours later, the invoice arrived. Room rental, $650. Cleaning fee, $100. Security deposit, $200. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. "We need to keep things fair. Everyone pays their share when they use the house." I pulled up my financial records. Every mortgage payment, every insurance premium, every property tax bill, paid from my account. The new deck Nesta had surprised everyone with last summer? My credit card. The professional cleaning service Brooke insisted on? My monthly subscription? Fair, I whispered to my empty home office. The word tasted like ash. My phone buzzed again. A group chat message from Brooke. Beach house pool party this Saturday. Jolie's swim team celebration. Everyone welcome. Below it, rapid fire responses. Count us in. Frankie, bringing my famous guac. Nestor. Perfect timing. Julian just got a new grill. Mum. I wasn't explicitly uninvited. I never was. They'd just learned that scheduling things when I had major client meetings was the easiest way to keep me out without having to be the bad guys. I opened my laptop and began typing a response to Brooke's invoice. My fingers hovered over the keys. 8 years of swallowing my pride, of being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who could always be counted on to understand. Another text from Brooke. Don't forget to send the payment before Friday if you want to use the house. We're trying to keep everything professional. Professional. Right. I closed my laptop without responding and reached for my phone. There was one number I should have called years ago. My old college friend Remington had become one of the city's top real estate attorneys, and I suddenly had some questions about the ownership structure Brooke had insisted would protect everyone. Hey Rem, I said when he picked up. Remember that beach house situation I got myself into? I think it's time we took a closer look at those papers I signed. His response was immediate. I was wondering when you'd finally call about that. Helen, you're being ridiculous. Brooke's voice crackled through my phone speaker. This is how families share costs. We all contribute. I sat at my kitchen counter, spreadsheets scattered around me like evidence at a crime scene. Contribute? I've paid for everything, Brooke. Everything. That's not true. Julian just bought a new grill. With the credit card I gave him for emergency maintenance, I interrupted. I have the statement right here. There was a pause. Then Brooke's tone shifted to that syrupy sweetness she used when manipulating our mother. Sweetie, I think you're just stressed from work. You've always been so intense about money. Remember what Dad used to say about, don't. My voice cracked. Don't you dare use Dad right now. But I did remember. 3 days before cancer took him, Dad had pulled me close, his hand trembling as he gripped mine. Helen, promise me you'll watch out for them, but don't let them. He'd started coughing then, never finishing the sentence. I'd spent years thinking he meant don't let them struggle. Now I wondered if he'd been trying to warn me about something else entirely. Look, Brooke sighed. If the rental fee is too much, we can discuss a family discount. Maybe 400? I pulled up my accounting software. I've paid 94% of all expenses since we bought the house. That's $1.87 million, Brooke. Where's your contribution? We handle the scheduling, the maintenance, the emotional labour of keeping everyone together. You can't put a price on family, Helen. Apparently, they could, and did, $650 worth. I need to go, I said, hanging up before she could respond. My phone immediately lit up with text messages. Nestor. Sis, why you gotta make everything about money? Bad vibes. Mum. Called Brooke, crying. How could you upset her like this? Frankie. Girl, we need to talk. This isn't you. I blocked them all. My laptop pinged with an email from Remington. Meeting in 20. Brought coffee and found something interesting in those 2015 docs. 15 minutes later, I walked into Remington's office. He hadn't changed much since college. Same wire-rimmed glasses, same habit of tapping his pen when he had news. He was tapping now. So, he said, sliding a coffee across his desk. Want the good news or the really good news? There's good news. He pulled out a thick folder. Remember how Brooke insisted on putting the beach house in an LLC to protect everyone? I nodded. She said it would keep us all safe from liability issues if anyone got hurt on the property. Well, Remington grinned. I just spent 3 hours reviewing the operating agreement. Helen, you own controlling interest, 100% controlling interest. What? But Brooke said we were all equal partners. On paper, you're the only member with voting rights. They're listed as non-voting members with 0 equity stake. Basically, they have no legal claim to the property at all. He leaned back. Your sister either didn't read the paperwork, or she thought I wouldn't, I finished. A cold clarity washed over me. She never expected me to check. She thought I'd just keep paying forever. Remington's pen stopped tapping. There's more. Those renovations they did last summer. Legally, they needed your written approval as the controlling member. Without it, they technically committed property conversion. In English, Rem, they stole from you, Helen, and I can prove it. I stared at the papers. Years of built-up resentment crystallising into something harder, colder. What are my options? Legally, you can evict them, sue for damages, or both. The property's yours. They have zero claim to it. He paused. But they're your family. What do you want to do? My phone buzzed with a new message from Jolie, my niece. Way to make Mom cry, Aunt Helen. Good thing we're having the pool party this weekend without your toxic energy. I showed Remington the text. How fast can you draw up eviction papers? He was already reaching for his laptop. Give me an hour, but Helen... His eyes met mine over the screen. Are you sure you're ready for the fallout? I thought about Dad's unfinished warning. About 8 years of exclusion wrapped in family obligation. About the invoice sitting in my inbox like a declaration of war. They're not my family, Rem. They're just people who've been stealing from me for 8 years. I stood up, straightening my jacket. And I want my house back. The beach house looked different now. Every pristine window, every carefully maintained flower bed represented another dollar they'd extracted from me. I sat in my car across the street, watching Nesta's beat-up van in the driveway, while Remington reviewed our strategy. Everything's filed, he said, shuffling papers. But we need documented evidence of their response to a reasonable request for access. Try asking to stay tonight. I pulled out my phone, typed a message I'd rehearsed a dozen times. I'm outside. I'd like to stay the weekend. My house. My right. The response was immediate. Splashing sounds from the pool stopped. Figures moved behind the windows. My phone erupted. Nesta. Whoa. Bad timing, sis. We're having a private gathering. Jolie. OMG, are you literally stalking us right now? Brooke. Helen, you're being inappropriate. We'll discuss this later. I stepped out of my car, Remington close behind with his briefcase. Music blasted from the backyard, my backyard, as we approached the front door. I used my key, the one they hadn't managed to take away yet. The scene in the backyard was exactly what I expected. Nesta floating on a pool lounger, Jolie and her friends scattered around the deck, and Brooke holding court by the new grill that I'd apparently bought. What part of private gathering didn't you understand? Brooke stood, her voice carrying that familiar note of authority she'd used to control me for years. I understand perfectly, I said, Remington a reassuring presence behind me. I understand that this is my house, and I'm staying the weekend. Jolie emerged from the pool, water dripping onto the expensive deck tiles. God, you're so embarrassing. Nobody wants you here. Jolie, Brooke warned, but her slight smile told me she approved of her daughter's cruelty. Nesta paddled to the pool's edge. Helen, your energy is really disrupting our peace right now. Maybe you should do some meditation. Find your centre. My centre? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make them flinch. My centre is right here, in this house that I paid for, watching my family throw a party they didn't bother to invite me to. You're always too busy, Brooke snapped. Always working. Always counting dollars instead of making memories. Counting dollars? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app. You mean like the $4,000 you spent last month on pool maintenance? Or the $8,000 for the new furniture you didn't tell me about? That was a necessary expense. Or maybe, I continued, my voice rising, the $20,000 you borrowed from my emergency fund for Jolie's Sweet 16, the one you promised to repay. Silence fell across the pool deck. Even Jolie's friends looked uncomfortable. You're making a scene, Brooke hissed. No, I said quietly. I'm making a point. I turned to Remington. Show them. He stepped forward, opening his briefcase. I'm Mrs. Lynch's attorney. I have here documentation showing she has sole controlling interest in this property. All renovations, modifications, and occupancy decisions legally require her approval. Attorney? Nesta scrambled out of the pool. Helen, this isn't very enlightened of you. Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. I'm done with the guilt trips, done with the manipulation, done with all of it. I turned to Brooke. You wanted to keep things professional? Fine, let's get professional. Remington handed me a stack of papers. I dropped them on a pool chair, watching water spots blur the ink. "What's this?" Brooke picked up the top sheet, her face paling. "Documentation of every unauthorised expenditure, every unapproved modification, and every dollar you've taken from me over the past 8 years." I met her eyes. "Plus an invoice, since we're all about fair shares now." "You can't be serious," she whispered. "Dead serious. You have 24 hours to clear out your personal belongings." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Jolie, that meditation pool float you're on, I paid for that too. Enjoy it while you can." Walking away, I heard the chaos erupting behind me. Brooke's shrill protests, Nesta's spiritual platitudes, Jolie's dramatic sobs. But for the first time in years, their voices didn't have any power over me. "That went well," Remington said as we reached the car. I looked back at the house, my house, one last time. No, it didn't. But it went exactly as it needed to. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Your father would be so ashamed." I turned off my phone, started my car and smiled. Dad had tried to warn me about family loyalty being a weapon. He'd be proud I'd finally learned to fight back. The hotel room felt sterile and empty, but it was better than going home. I opened my laptop, pulled up the beach house's smart home dashboard, the one I'd paid for and they'd forgotten I could access. The security cameras flickered to life. They were still there, of course. Brooke pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear. Nesta sprawled on my couch, probably plotting his next spiritual guilt trip. Jolie and her friends had moved the party inside, leaving wet footprints on my hardwood floors. I turned up the volume. "She's lost her mind," Brooke was saying. "No, Mom, you don't understand. She brought a lawyer." "Yes, an actual lawyer." A pause. "Of course I read the paperwork before we signed it. I'm not stupid." I smiled. 8 years of letting them think I was the stupid one, the naive one, the one who'd always give in. Not anymore. My phone lit up with a text from Remington. "Everything's filed. Sheriff's Department confirmed lockout schedule for Saturday. You sure about this?" I watched through the cameras as Jolie knocked over a wine glass, red liquid seeping into the white carpet. Nobody moved to clean it up. "I'm sure," I texted back. The next few days, I worked from the hotel, keeping the security feeds open on my second monitor. It was like watching a reality show where I finally knew the plot twist. Wednesday, they threw another party. Bigger this time, as if defying my authority. Thursday, Brooke brought in her own lawyer, who left looking frustrated after 2 hours. Friday, they started moving things, expensive things, my things. I picked up my phone. "Hello, police. I'd like to report theft in progress at my property." The officers arrived within 20 minutes. I watched through the cameras as Brooke tried to charm them, watched her face fall when they asked for proof of ownership. "But we're family," she kept saying, as if that explained everything. They made them put everything back. Every borrowed painting, every borrowed piece of furniture. I saved the footage, sent it to Remington. That night, I accessed the smart home controls, turned the heat up to 80 degrees, changed the Wi-Fi password, set all the lights to strobe slowly, just enough to be annoying. Small things, petty things. But after 8 years of being invisible, it felt good to remind them I existed. At 3 a.m, my phone rang. Nestor. "The house is haunted," he slurred, clearly drunk. "There's negative energy everywhere. The spirits are angry." "No," I cut in. "I'm angry. And I'm not a spirit, I'm the owner. Get out of my house." Friday night, I watched them pack. Watched Brooke instruct Jolie to take pictures of every room for evidence. Evidence of what? How well they'd maintained a house they'd stolen from me? A memory surfaced. My 35th birthday 3 years ago. I'd driven to the beach house, hoping to surprise them. They were all there, taking family photos on the deck. I'd stood in the driveway, watching through the window as they posed and laughed. "Oh, Helen," Brooke had said when she finally noticed me. "We didn't think you'd come. You're always so busy." They'd never added me to the photos. My phone buzzed. A series of texts. Brooke. "You're making a huge mistake." Nestor. "The universe will remember this betrayal, sister." Mum. "Please, Helen, let's talk about this like family." Jolie. "I hate you. I actually hate you. I opened the smart home app one last time, set all the TVs to play a single message on repeat. Checkout time, noon tomorrow. Then I typed out a single response to all of them. Family doesn't steal from family. See you at the lockout. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my hotel chair, exhausted but calm. Tomorrow the sheriff would arrive. Tomorrow they'd finally understand what it felt like to be locked out. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from an unknown number. Just heard what happened with the beach house. Ready to talk about what Brooke did 8 years ago? I froze, recognizing the area code. Aubrey, my former best friend. The one who disappeared after that business deal with Brooke went bad. The one secret I'd never uncovered. I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Some truths you think you're ready for until they're staring you in the face. Tomorrow, I typed back, after the lockout. First, I had a family to evict. Then finally, I'd learned just how deep Brooke's betrayals really went. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up behind my car at exactly noon. I watched my family through the living room windows, still acting like they owned the place, still believing I wouldn't go through with it. Ready? Remington asked, holding the final paperwork. I nodded, and we approached the front door together. The sheriff, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanour, followed with the locksmith. The door opened before we could knock. Brooke stood there, perfectly posed in her designer outfit, like she was greeting guests at one of her charity functions. Helen, she smiled tightly. Surely we can discuss this privately, like family. Step aside, ma'am, the sheriff said. We have a court order. Inside, the scene was exactly what I'd expected. Julian pacing by the fireplace, Nesta cross-legged on the floor, pretending to meditate, Mom crying softly on the couch. Jolie stood at the top of the stairs, filming everything on her phone. This is going on TikTok, she announced. Everyone's going to see what a monster you are. Go ahead, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Show them how you lived in a house for 8 years without paying a dime. I'm sure that'll go viral. The locksmith started working on the front door while the sheriff read out the order. I watched their faces as reality finally sank in. But the LLC, Brooke stammered. We all signed. Remington stepped forward, documents in hand. Actually, Mrs. Wallace, you signed away all voting rights. Your sister has been the sole controlling member since day one. Here's the paperwork, if you'd like to review it. The colour drained from Brooke's face. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. You can't do this, Julian finally spoke, his voice shaking. We have rights. No, I said quietly. You really don't. Mum stood up, tears streaming down her face. Helen, please! Think about what this will do to the family. I have thought about it. For 8 years, I've thought about nothing else. I turned to the sheriff. They have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items. Everything else can be claimed next week with proper supervision. This is karma, Nesta declared, finally opening his eyes. The universe will make you pay for this negative energy. Karma? I laughed. Karma is watching you all finally face consequences. Karma is standing here while you realise that every signature, every document, every legal detail you thought you could ignore is coming back to haunt you. 15 minutes, the sheriff announced. They scattered like startled birds, grabbing photos and electronics. Jolie ran to her room, slamming the door. Brooke stood frozen, staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. The trust fund, she whispered. What Aubrey told you? We'll discuss that later, I cut her off. Much later. The locksmith finished with the doors, handing me new keys. The sound of them jingling in my hand was sweeter than any music. 5 minutes. Mom made one last attempt, clutching my arm. Your father would never have wanted this. I gently removed her hand. Dad tried to warn me about you all. I just didn't understand until now. Finally, they stood on the driveway, a sad collection of hastily packed bags at their feet. The sheriff posted the final notice on the door while the locksmith changed the garage code. This isn't over, Brooke said, but her voice had lost its power. It is, I replied. It really is. They left one by one. Nesta in his van, Julian and Jolie in their SUV, Mum in her sedan. Brooke was last, standing by her car, mascara streaking her cheeks. We're your family, she tried one last time. No, I said. You're just people who took advantage of someone who wanted a family so badly she'd let herself be stolen from for 8 years. I watched them drive away, their cars disappearing around the corner. The sheriff nodded respectfully before leaving. Remington squeezed my shoulder and headed to his car. Standing alone in my driveway, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for 8 years. My phone buzzed. Aubrey again. Saw them leave, ready to tell you what really happened with that trust fund. I looked at my house, truly mine now, and typed back, "Come over. It's time I learned everything." The truth was coming, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. I walked inside, closed the door, and listened to the beautiful sound of silence in my empty house. Aubrey looked exactly the same as she had 8 years ago, down to the nervous way she twisted her silver rings. We sat on my newly reclaimed patio, watching the waves crash against the shore. "I should have told you sooner," she said, clutching her coffee mug. I couldn't face it. Couldn't face you. "Tell me now." She pulled out a folder, weathered and worn, like she'd carried it for years. "Remember that investment opportunity Brooke brought us? The one she said would triple our money?" I remembered. It was supposed to be a sure thing, a chain of luxury boutiques across 3 states. Brooke had been so convincing, so passionate. "She needed startup capital," Aubrey continued. "You gave her access to your trust fund for the initial investment. I put in my inheritance." "And it failed," I said. "Businesses fail all the time." Aubrey's laugh was bitter. "No, Helen, it never existed." She spread documents across the table. There were no boutiques, no vendors, no contracts, just a lot of pretty paperwork and empty promises. My hands shook as I picked up the papers. Bank statements, wire transfers, all leading to offshore accounts. "She took everything," Aubrey's voice cracked. "My entire inheritance. But you were the real target. She didn't just take your investment." "What do you mean?" "She used your trust fund as collateral for personal loans. Massive loans. When I figured it out and confronted her, she threatened to implicate me in the fraud. Said she'd make it look like we planned it together." The ocean breeze felt suddenly cold. "How much?" "Almost all of it." "The beach house purchase?" "That wasn't just about getting a family vacation spot. She needed a way to hide the missing money, make it look like a legitimate investment." My coffee cup hit the table hard. The LLC structure, the paperwork she insisted on, was designed to give her control of your assets without leaving a paper trail. But she messed up, got sloppy with the legal documents. "She gave me controlling interest by mistake," I whispered. "It was the only part of her plan that failed." Aubrey reached across the table, gripping my hand. "I've spent 8 years gathering evidence, building a case. When I heard about the eviction, I knew it was time." My phone buzzed. "Brooke. Mum's in the hospital. Stress-induced panic attack. I hope you're happy." I showed Aubrey the message. "More manipulation," she said softly. "That's all they know how to do." Another text arrived. Frankie. "Just heard everything. Need to talk. Brooke promised me part ownership, but I never saw any paperwork." "How many others?" I asked Aubrey. "How many people did she con?" "Too many. But you were the biggest target. Family is the perfect cover for fraud. Who questions their own sister?" I stood up, walking to the railing. Below, the pool sparkled in the afternoon sun. The pool I'd paid for twice, once through my trust fund and again through the beach house maintenance costs. "I want to press charges," I said. "Already ahead of you." Aubrey pulled out one more document. "I've been working with a federal investigator. They've been building a case for months. They just needed someone to make the first move." "The eviction," she nodded. "You did exactly what they needed. Proved the property ownership. Established clear documentation of fraud. They're ready to move whenever you are." My phone buzzed again. Nestor. "The spirits told me you're planning something dark. Don't let hatred poison your soul, sister." I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. He always did have perfect timing with his spiritual insights. "Helen," Aubrey stood, joining me at the railing. "I'm so sorry I disappeared. I thought I was protecting you by staying away, gathering evidence quietly. I should have trusted you with the truth." We both trusted the wrong sister. Inside, my phone kept buzzing. Messages from family members I'd never really had, trying to guilt me into silence. But the time for silence was over. I turned to Aubrey. "Call your investigator. Tell them I'm ready to talk." She pulled out her phone, then paused. You know this will destroy them, right? Not just Brooke, all of them. Anyone who knew and stayed quiet. I thought about 8 years of exclusion, about Dad's unfinished warning, about all the family memories I'd paid for but never been part of. They destroyed themselves, I said. They just didn't expect to face consequences. As Aubrey made the call, I watched the sun set over my ocean view. Tomorrow would bring federal agents, formal statements, and the final demolition of my family's carefully constructed lies. But tonight, for the first time in 8 years, I could breathe freely in my own house. The federal agents arrived at dawn. Dark suits, serious faces, stacks of documents that made my own evidence look tiny in comparison. They set up in my living room, turning my beach house into command central for Operation Family Fraud. Their words, not mine. Your sister's been busy, Agent Martinez said, spreading photos across my coffee table. The beach house was just the tip of the iceberg. The images showed Brooke at charity galas, business meetings, country club luncheons, always smiling, always working the room, always finding new victims. We've identified 37 separate instances of investment fraud, another agent explained, plus tax evasion, money laundering, and identity theft. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since they arrived. I finally answered one call, Frankie. Helen, there are FBI agents at my door. Let them in, Frankie. Tell them everything. But Brooke, she said she'd help me start my interior design business. Did she? Or did she take your money and tell you to wait? Silence. Then a sob. How did you know? Because that's what she does. I hung up, turning to Agent Martinez. How many family members were involved? She consulted her notes. Your brother Nestor laundered money through his meditation retreats. Your mother acted as a recruiter, finding vulnerable, wealthy widows at her church. Julian handled the paperwork. Even your niece Jolie was involved. She used her social media to promote fake investment opportunities. My stomach churned, and none of them saw consequences until now. People trust family, she said simply. That's what makes this type of fraud so effective and so devastating. My phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. They're arresting Julian. Please, Helen, think about Jolie. She's just a child. A child who helped steal millions, Agent Martinez commented, reading over my shoulder. We have evidence of her coaching other teenagers to invest their college funds in fake startups. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times Jolie had mocked me, called me pathetic, filmed me for her mean-spirited social media posts. Not so funny now. The day unfolded like a slow-motion car crash. Arrests, interrogations, confessions. My family's perfect facade crumbling under federal scrutiny. Aubrey stayed with me through all of it, her presence a steady reminder that not all betrayals are permanent, not all wounds unhealable. Your mother's asking to see you, an agent announced late that afternoon. Says she has information to trade. I found Mom in an interview room at the local FBI office. Her designer outfit wrinkled, her makeup streaked with tears. Helen. She reached for my hand. I kept them in my pockets. You have to understand. Everything I did for the family. No, I said quietly. You did it for Brooke. You always did everything for Brooke. She's special, Mum insisted. She has a gift. For fraud. For bringing people together, for making things happen. I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call stealing my trust fund? Making things happen? Your father left you too much, she snapped, mask finally slipping. It wasn't fair to the others. We were just redistributing things, making them equal. By stealing? By lying? By surviving? She slammed her hand on the table. Some of us weren't born with your advantages, Helen. Some of us had to take what we needed. I stood up. I worked for everything I have. Everything you stole, I earned. And now you get to learn about earning things too. In federal prison. Her face crumpled. I have information. About other investments, other people involved. Tell it to the agents, I said, walking out. In the hallway, Aubrey waited with Agent Martinez. We found something else, Martinez said softly. Family heirlooms sold from the beach house. Your grandmother's jewellery, your father's watches. Brooke said those were in storage, I whispered. They were sold. We found the transactions. She handed me a document. She forged your signature on the sales. I stared at the paper. at the fake version of my name authorizing the sale of my family's history, something inside me finally broke. I want to press every possible charge, I said through tears, every single one. Aubrey hugged me, while Agent Martinez nodded grimly. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Nesta. "The universe forgives all, sister." "When will you?" I typed back. "The universe might forgive, but the federal government doesn't. Namaste." Outside the FBI office, the sun was setting on the longest day of my life. My family was in custody, my inheritance was being traced, and my heart was simultaneously shattered and stronger than ever. "Ready to go home?" Aubrey asked. "Home? To my beach house. My empty, peaceful, honest beach house." "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." The booking request popped up on my phone. "Beach house rental inquiry from Francesca Dixon." I stared at the notification, coffee growing cold beside my laptop. Through the beach house windows, I could see the sunrise painting the ocean gold. The same view my family had enjoyed while plotting to steal from me. The house felt different now. Peaceful. I'd remodelled everything, erasing their presence room by room. New furniture, new paint, new memories. The property listing on Airbnb had been Aubrey's idea. "Reclaim it," she'd said. "Make it yours." My phone buzzed again. Frankie was persistent. "Please, Helen. I know I don't deserve it, but I need somewhere to stay after the plea deal. Just a few days." The federal case had wrapped up faster than expected. Brooke took a 20-year sentence rather than risk trial. Julian got 15. Mum and Nestor both took deals for 10. Even Jolie faced juvenile detention and mandatory restitution payments. I clicked decline on Frankie's request. Typed a single-word response, karma. The doorbell rang. Aubrey stood there with breakfast bagels and case files. "The forensic accountants found another account," she said, spreading cream cheese on a bagel. "Hidden under your grandmother's maiden name. They're still tracing victims." "How much this time?" $2 million, mostly from Mum's church friends. I shook my head, thinking of all those sweet elderly women who trusted my mother's prayers and promises. My laptop pinged. An email from Remington. "Final restitution numbers attached. You'll want to sit down for this." I opened the file. The number of zeros made my head spin. "They really thought they'd never get caught," Aubrey said, reading over my shoulder. "That's the thing about family fraud. Everyone thinks they're special, different, untouchable." "We weren't family," I said. "We were marks who shared DNA." My phone lit up with a new message. From an unknown number, but I recognised Jolie's writing style. "They're making me sell all my designer stuff for restitution. My whole social media empire is gone. I hope you're happy. You ruined everything." I showed Aubrey the text. She snorted. "Yeah, you ruined everything. Not the federal crimes or anything." The morning sun filled the house with light as we went through more documents. Victim statements, impact reports. The full scope of my family's deception laid bare in black and white. Another booking request popped up. Beach house rental inquiry from Scarlett Lynch. My mother, using her real name this time, bold. "Helen, please. I'm being released to house arrest. I have nowhere to go. Delete. Block. Breathe." "You know what's funny?" I said to Aubrey. "They're all still trying to use this house. Still trying to claim a piece of it. Because it's the only piece left. Everything else is gone. The money, the schemes, the fake businesses. This is real." I walked to the window, watching waves crash against the shore. I thought revenge would feel better. Doesn't it? "No," I smiled. "It feels perfect." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Dad's old number. Mum must have kept his phone active all these years. "Family is everything. Never forget that." "Mum?" I typed back. "You're right. Family is everything. That's why I chose a new one." I blocked that number too, then opened my Airbnb settings. Added one house rule. No bookings accepted from members of the Lynch, Wallace or Dixon families. No exceptions. "Ready?" Aubrey asked, gathering her things. "The victim restitution meeting starts in an hour." I looked around my beach house one last time. My house, my rules, my life. "Actually," I said, "I want to make one stop first. We drove to the federal detention centre where Brooke was being held. I didn't go inside, just sat in the parking lot, looking at the high walls and razor wire. You don't owe them anything, Aubrey said softly. Not even a visit. I know. I started the car. I just needed to see it. To know it's real. Back at the beach house that evening, I sat on my deck watching the sunset. My phone was quiet. My house was peaceful. My life was mine again. I opened my laptop and typed out a new property description for the Airbnb listing. Welcome to Karma Beach House, where every sunrise brings new beginnings, every sunset marks endings, and the ocean washes everything clean. Families welcome, real ones only. Then I closed my laptop, picked up my wine glass, and toasted the setting sun. Some families are born, some are chosen, and some are better left to federal prosecutors. I had finally chosen mine.
The words hung in the air like poison gas. Daughters are just expenses, sons are investments. My father's voice carried that familiar tone, casual cruelty wrapped in fatherly wisdom. I gripped my wine glass tighter, watching the red liquid tremble. My name is Yesenia, and this was supposed to be a celebration dinner. My brother Alex had just been promoted to Senior VP at Stratford & Kane Logistics, the company where our father Leo had worked for 40 years. Never mind that Alex had crashed 3 departments and burned through millions in failed initiatives. He was the son, the investment, the future. Come on, Dad, Alex laughed, cutting into his steak. You can't say stuff like that anymore. It's 2024. Why not? It's the truth, Dad gestured with his fork. Look at you. Everything I put into your education, your career guidance, it's all paying off. The Wallace name will mean something in this industry because of you. I took another sip of wine, letting it burn. 20 years of straight A's, an MBA from Wharton, and countless business proposals I'd tried to show him, all dismissed with that same patronising smile. Just focus on finding a good husband, sweetheart. Yesenia's doing fine with her. What is it you do again, sis? Marketing consulting? Alex asked, mouth full of potato. Something like that, I replied. Let them think I was some small-time freelancer. Let them underestimate me. They didn't need to know about the empire I'd built from scratch, the ventures I'd launched and flipped for millions. My wealth was my secret weapon. See what I mean? Dad continued. No ambition, no drive for real success. That's why I never wasted time trying to groom her for business. Mum picked at her salad, silent as always. 20 years of watching her swallow her voice had taught me everything I needed to know about survival. Actually, I said, keeping my voice level, I just closed a major deal today. Oh? Dad barely glanced up. Another website for someone's craft business? Something bigger. My phone buzzed. Perfect timing. Excuse me, I need to take this. I stepped onto the restaurant's terrace, the night air cool against my flushed skin. The caller ID read Peyton May. Yesenia. Peyton's voice was electric with excitement. The pieces are in place. Stratford & Kane's board is vulnerable. Their stock's been sliding since that failed merger. With your capital, we could initiate a quiet takeover within months. I looked back through the window. Dad was gesturing animatedly, probably sharing another story about Alex's brilliant future. My brother was preening, his fiancée Callie hanging on every word. Mum just nodded along, like always. The old guard won't know what hit them, Peyton continued. We can keep your involvement hidden through shell corporations until the final move. Are you interested? My father's words echoed. Just an expense, no ambition, no drive for real success. Tell them I'm interested, I said, my voice steel. And Peyton, make sure everything's airtight. I want this to be surgical. When I returned to the table, Dad was ordering another bottle of wine. To Alex, he declared, the son who'll make the Wallace name legendary in logistics. I raised my glass with the rest of them, smiling for the first time that evening. To legendary names, I echoed. The drive back to my penthouse was a blur of streetlights and strategy. I'd spent 15 years building my wealth in secret, watching from the shadows as my father poured everything into grooming Alex for a throne he'd never deserve. Now the pieces were finally in place. My phone buzzed again. Catherine, my attorney, probably already drafting preliminary paperwork for the takeover. She knew my whole story, had helped me structure my businesses to stay under the family radar. I let it go to voicemail. Tonight I needed to think. The penthouse was dark when I entered, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city lights below. I kicked off my heels and poured myself a scotch. The expensive kind Dad would say was wasted on a daughter. "Just an expense," I whispered to my reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't the quiet girl who'd learned to swallow her dreams. She was a shark who'd learned to swim in silence, gathering strength in the deep. I pulled out my laptop and opened the file marked S&K Analysis. Pages of financial reports, board member profiles and stock projections filled the screen. At the top was my father's company photo, silver-haired, confident, utterly secure in his legacy. "Time to show you what your expense can do, Dad." The scotch burned going down, but not as much as 15 years of silence. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tonight I'd savour the calm before the storm I was about to unleash. "You're really going to do this?" Catherine's heels clicked against my office floor as she dropped a stack of documents on my desk. "Taking down your father's company?" "Not taking down," I corrected, scanning the incorporation papers for my newest shell company. "Taking over, there's a difference." "Same result, you're going to destroy him." Catherine perched on the edge of my desk, her usual professional demeanour slipping. After 10 years as my attorney, she was the closest thing I had to a best friend. "Taking the crown might cost you your sanity, Yesenia. My sanity's been just fine through 15 years of being invisible." I signed the last document with a flourish. Besides, the numbers don't lie. Stratford and Kane is vulnerable. Their old-school management style is bleeding them dry. My phone lit up with a text from Peyton. "Meeting set with Garrett Jensen. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. "Garrett Jensen?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "The former CEO they pushed out?" "The very same." I smiled, "and I bet he has some interesting insights about my father's leadership style." The next morning, I walked into the private dining room of the Four Seasons. Garrett Jensen stood to greet me, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Wallace," he extended his hand, "I've heard impressive things about your investment portfolio." "Most people haven't heard anything about it," I replied, taking my seat. "That's by design." "Smart." He nodded approvingly. "Your father never mentioned having such a shrewd businesswoman for a daughter." "My father never mentioned having a daughter at all, I imagine." Garrett's expression shifted. Leo was traditional in his views. It's partly why we clashed. He and his old boys club thought innovation meant finding new ways to do the same old things. "Is that why they forced you out?" "They called it early retirement." His smile was razor-sharp. "I called it short-sightedness. The company needs new blood, new vision. When Peyton told me about your interest..." He paused, studying me. "This isn't just business for you, is it?" "Everything is business," I replied coolly. "Of course." He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. "Speaking of business, have you seen the latest board announcement?" I looked at the screen and felt my stomach clench. The headline read, "Stratford and Kane names Alex Wallace as incoming COO." "My brother," I said flatly. "They're really going to hand him the keys to the kingdom." "Your father's influence." Garrett leaned forward. "But here's what they don't know. Alex has been cooking the books in his division for months, creative accounting to hide his mistakes." Now that was interesting. "You still have sources inside?" "I built that company for 20 years. Loyalty doesn't disappear overnight." He pulled out a thumb drive. "Everything you need to know about the board members, their voting patterns, their vulnerabilities. Use it wisely." Back at my office, Catherine was waiting with more papers. "We've secured another 2% through the offshore account. That puts us at 12% total ownership." "Not enough." I paced the floor. "We need at least 30% before making any moves." "Yesenia." Catherine's voice was gentle. The revenge you're planning, it won't heal what he did to you. I stopped at the window, watching the city buzz below. This isn't about healing, it's about justice. Justice? She laughed harshly. You're planning to destroy your father's legacy, humiliate your brother, and tear apart your family's company. That sounds more like revenge to me. Then call it revenge, I spun around. Call it whatever you want, but I earned this. Every dollar, every connection, every piece of leverage, I built it all while they treated me like some worthless expense, Catherine finished softly. My phone rang. Peyton again. Turn on CNBC, she said without preamble. Your brother's giving an interview about his new role. I grabbed the remote, and there was Alex, smooth and polished in his designer suit, spouting buzzwords about innovation and family legacy. Stratford and Kane has always been about family, he was saying. My father taught me that business is about relationships, about trust. I muted the TV, my hand shaking slightly. We can still walk away, Catherine said quietly. You've built something amazing on your own. You don't need this fight. I thought about last night's dinner, about 20 years of dinners just like it, about trophies hidden away and dreams dismissed, about a mother's silence and a father's casual cruelty. Actually, I said, picking up Garrett's thumb drive, I do need this fight, and I'm going to win it. I plugged in the drive, and pages of internal documents filled my screen. Board member profiles, voting records, financial statements, everything we needed to execute a perfect takeover. Call Peyton, I told Catherine. Tell her to start moving on the next phase. It's time to show them what the expense can do. The annual logistics industry gala was exactly as pretentious as I remembered. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and enough ego to sink a cruise ship. I adjusted my blonde wig and designer glasses, my Rachel Green disguise as Catherine called it. Nobody here would recognise Yesenia Wallace tonight. Rachel, darling! Callie air-kissed my cheeks, totally buying the fake identity I'd cultivated at these events. My brother's fiancée loved nothing more than networking with influential industry wives. Callie, how's wedding planning going? I asked, noting her slightly slurred speech. 3 glasses of champagne, minimum. Ugh, postponed again! She rolled her eyes. Alex is just so busy with this COO transition. The auditors are breathing down his neck, and he's practically living at the office. I sipped my sparkling water. Auditors? That sounds stressful. Tell me about it. Callie leaned in conspiratorially. Between us, he's totally drowning. Yesterday he called me crying about some missing reports. Actually crying. Can you imagine? How embarrassing, I murmured, mentally recording every word. I mean, I know his father pulled strings to get him this position, but... She glanced around and lowered her voice. The board's starting to ask questions. Something about inconsistent numbers in the Asia division. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Excuse me, I told Callie. Must take this. In the quiet hallway, Catherine's voice was urgent. The Thompson property just sold. You need to move now if you want those shares. Price? 12 million. Clean offer, no contingencies. I thought about my brother's tears, about those missing reports. Do it. And Catherine, start the paperwork on the Miller acquisition too. That's another 8 million. Are you sure? Time to go all in. I ended the call and checked my reflection, adjusting the wig. Through the ballroom doors, I could see my father holding court at his usual table, probably bragging about Alex's promotion. A familiar voice behind me. Nice disguise. I turned to find Garrett, looking amused. How did you know? I make it my business to know things. He handed me a glass of champagne. Like the fact that you just bought the Thompson property. Bold move. I learned from watching the best. I clinked my glass against his. Speaking of bold moves, heard anything interesting lately? Your brother's Asia division is hemorrhaging money. The board's called an emergency meeting for next week. He smiled thinly. Funny timing considering those anonymous tips about accounting irregularities. I kept my face neutral. Those anonymous tips had cost me a small fortune to arrange. The truth always comes out eventually. Indeed. Garrett's eyes drifted to my father's table. You know, Leo once told me daughters were bad investments. I wonder what he'll think when he realises his greatest threat was the daughter he ignored. My phone buzzed again. A text from Catherine. Miller deal closed. We're at 28% ownership. 2 more weeks, tops. A memory hit me. 16-year-old me, standing in my father's study with my college acceptance letter. Dad, I got into Wharton. Early decision. He barely looked up. That's nice, sweetheart, but Alex needs his tuition covered for that gaming startup course. We'll have to use your college fund. You can go to state school. It's fine for what you'll need. Back in the present, Callie was waving me over to her table. I squared my shoulders and rejoined the party, playing my role perfectly. Rachel Green, harmless social butterfly, listening and gathering intel as the champagne flowed. I just don't know what we'll do if this audit goes badly, Callie was saying, definitely on glass number 5 now. Alex's whole future depends on this promotion. Everything will work out, I assured her, watching my father laugh at some joke across the room. The truth always comes out eventually. Later that night, I sat in my office, wig discarded, staring at the latest financial reports. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd hoped. Alex's desperation, the board's suspicion, my steadily growing ownership stake. It was all coming together. My phone lit up, Catherine again. Just got word from our source on the board. The emergency meeting's been moved up. They're calling for a full audit of all divisions. Perfect. I pulled up the document I'd been saving for exactly this moment. Proof of every creative accounting trick Alex had used to hide his failures. Send in the anonymous tip about the offshore accounts tomorrow morning. Yesenia, Catherine hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this to your own brother? I thought about that college fund, about every time he'd smirked while Dad dismissed my achievements. He's not my brother anymore. He's just another bad investment that needs to be corrected. The board meeting's in 2 weeks, Catherine said quietly. Once we submit this evidence, there's no going back. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window, seeing not the ignored daughter, but the shark I'd become. Good. It's time everyone learned what happens when you underestimate an expense. Stratford and Kane leadership under scrutiny. Board calls emergency meeting. The Wall Street Journal headlines stared back at me from my tablet. 3 other major business publications had picked up the story, each adding their own speculation about the company's future. The stock's down 12% since the story broke, Garrett reported over lunch. Your brother's been calling emergency meetings all week, but he can't stop the bleeding. Any word from my father? Leo's doing what he does best, denying everything and blaming others. Garrett's phone buzzed. Speaking of which, look who just released a statement. I read the company press release. These baseless rumours are an attempt to destabilise a strong and stable company. The Wallace family stands behind our leadership and vision. The Wallace family, I repeated, tasting the irony. How convenient that I'm only family when they need a united front. My phone lit up, Catherine. Turn on CNBC now, she said when I answered. Your brother's doing damage control. I switched on the office TV. Alex looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, tie slightly askew. These allegations are completely unfounded, he was saying, voice strained. Our Asia division is performing exactly as projected. Is that why internal auditors are reviewing all international transactions? The reporter pressed. Alex's face twitched. No comment on ongoing internal processes. I muted the TV. He's drowning. And you're not done yet, Catherine said. The latest stock purchase cleared. We're at 35% ownership. Enough for a board position. I smiled. Time to visit memory lane. An hour later, I pulled up to my childhood home. The house looked smaller than I remembered, its pristine lawn a testament to my father's obsession with appearances. The spare key was still hidden under the garden gnome. Inside, everything was exactly as I remembered, including the trophy cabinet in the living room. Alex's participation trophies and business awards dominated the shelves. My Wharton diploma and business competition medals were nowhere to be seen. I wondered when you'd come. I spun around. My mother stood in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. "Mom!" My voice came out harder than intended. Didn't expect anyone home at this hour. I saw the news. She moved closer, studying my face. The company troubles, the stock price falling. That's you, isn't it? What makes you say that? Because I know you, Yesenia. I've watched you build yourself in silence all these years. She touched the trophy cabinet gently. Your father never saw it coming, but I did. And you never said anything. What could I say? Her voice cracked slightly. I stayed silent for survival, just like you did. But I saw everything, every dismissal, every time he crushed your dreams for Alex's whims. And you did nothing. I did what I could. She disappeared into the study, returning with a box. I kept these. Inside were all my awards, certificates, newspaper clippings about my early business successes, published under different names, of course. You knew? Mothers always know. She smiled sadly. I tracked every shell company, every quiet acquisition. You learned to hide in plain sight, just like I did. My phone buzzed. Garrett. Board meeting moved up to tomorrow. They found the offshore accounts. Mum read my expression. It's happening, isn't it? The takeover you've planned. How did you... Like I said, I've been watching. She touched my arm. Your father isn't as blind as you think, and neither is Alex. Let them see, I said coldly. It's too late to stop it now. I'm not trying to stop you. She pulled out one final document from the box, my original business plan for a logistics company, written when I was 17. The one Dad had laughed at and called cute. I want you to know, she said quietly, that someone was always watching, always believing, even if I couldn't say it. My phone buzzed again, Catherine this time. Everything's set for tomorrow. The board votes at 9 a.m. I have to go. I turned to leave, then paused. Mum, why tell me all this now? Because tomorrow you'll destroy everything your father built. She met my eyes steadily. And I want you to know that his biggest mistake wasn't underestimating you. It was never seeing you at all. Back in my car, I read Catherine's text again. Last chance to back out. I thought about the trophy cabinet, about my mother's secret box of achievements, about every dinner where I was invisible. My reply was simple. See you at 9 a.m. The city lights blurred as I drove back to my office. Tomorrow would change everything. The board would vote, the truth would emerge, and Leo Wallace would finally learn what his expense had become. I touched the business plan Mum had given me, now sitting on my passenger seat. Tomorrow, the invisible daughter would step into the light, and nothing would ever be the same. The Stratford and Kane boardroom fell silent as I walked in. 12 pairs of eyes locked onto me, including my father's and brother's. Alex's face went pale. Dad's expression flickered between confusion and dawning horror. What is she doing here? Dad demanded, half rising from his seat. Garrett stepped forward, smooth as ever. Allow me to introduce our newest major shareholder, Yesenia Wallace. She holds 35% of company shares through various investment vehicles. That's impossible, Alex sputtered. She's just a freelance consultant. Actually, I placed my portfolio on the mahogany table. I'm the CEO of Summit Ventures. We've acquired controlling interests in 17 companies over the past decade. Perhaps you've heard of us? Dad's face reddened. This is ridiculous. Some kind of joke. The only joke, I said, taking my seat, is how long you've mismanaged this company while promoting incompetent leadership based on gender rather than merit. How dare you, Alex started, but I cut him off. Shall we discuss the Asia Division's books, Alex? The offshore accounts? The creative accounting to hide your failures? The colour drained from his face. This is emotional hysteria, Dad announced to the board. The bitter revenge of a daughter who... No, I interrupted, my voice arctic. This is hostile acquisition by a better investor. Now, let's discuss the leadership restructuring proposal. Catherine distributed documents to each board member. As you can see, we've documented systematic mismanagement under current leadership, including multiple instances of financial irregularities. You can't do this, Dad's voice cracked. This company is my legacy. Was your legacy, I corrected. Page 3 details the proposed new management structure, with Garrett Jensen returning as CEO. You're working with him? Alex pointed at Garrett accusingly. He's been feeding you information. Smart girl, Garrett smiled. Unlike some, she actually earned her position. The next hour was a blur of presentations, votes, and signatures. Dad sat in stunned silence as his empire crumbled. Alex alternated between threats and pleading. The board members, seeing the evidence of mismanagement, voted overwhelmingly for change. This concludes the leadership transition, Catherine announced finally. Mr. Wallace Jr., you'll find severance terms in your packets. You've been planning this for years, Dad said quietly as others filed out. All those quiet dinners playing the dutiful daughter. I learned from you, Dad. Isn't that what you wanted? A child who understood business. I gathered my papers. Though I suppose you meant Alex. I'll fight this, he threatened. I'll expose whatever illegal methods you used. Everything was perfectly legal, I cut in. I just played the game better than you. Besides, do you really want people knowing you lost your company to the daughter you called just an expense? His face contorted. For a moment I thought he might actually strike me. Instead, he grabbed his coat and stormed out, leaving Alex alone with me. Sis, he tried, using his old cajoling tone. We can work something out. I'm still your brother. My brother? I laughed coldly. My brother who took my college fund, who watched Dad dismiss me for years and smirked. That brother? I know something, he hissed, dropping the nice act. About your first acquisition, the Martinez deal, not as clean as you pretend. I felt Catherine tense beside me, but I kept my voice steady. Is that right? Give me a fair settlement, real money, not this severance garbage, or I'll make sure everyone knows how you really built your empire. Alex, I leaned forward, do you really want to play this game with me after I just took down Dad's whole company without breaking a sweat? He swallowed hard. But let's talk after lunch, I continued pleasantly. I'm sure Callie would love to join us. We could discuss those interesting texts she's been sending me about your creative accounting methods. Callie? His voice cracked. She wouldn't. Everyone has a price, brother. Isn't that what Dad taught us? I stood up, though sometimes the price is just revenge. He grabbed my arm as I passed. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I pulled free. But if you want to test me, remember, I've spent 15 years learning how to destroy people while smiling. Want to see what I can do in 15 minutes? He let go, deflating like a punctured balloon. At the door, I turned back. Oh, and Alex, clean out your office by 5. Expense or not, I own this company now. In the elevator, Catherine finally spoke. He wasn't bluffing about the Martinez deal. I know. I watched the numbers descend. But he doesn't know I have contingency plans for every possible threat, including him. The crown is yours, she said quietly. Was it worth it? I thought about Dad's face, about Alex's threats, about 15 years of silence and fury. Ask me tomorrow, I replied as the elevator doors opened. We're not done yet. The Martinez deal? Catherine spread the old files across my desk. Alex could cause problems with this. The SEC doesn't look kindly on undisclosed conflicts of interest. He's bluffing, I said, but uncertainty gnawed at my stomach. He doesn't have proof. My phone buzzed. Alex. Ready to talk, sis, or should I call the Securities and Exchange Commission first? I hit ignore, but seconds later an email arrived. Attached were scanned documents from the Martinez acquisition, including emails I thought I'd deleted years ago. Shit! I pushed the laptop toward Catherine. He kept receipts. This is bad, she confirmed, scanning the documents. If he proves you knew about Martinez's connection to your shell company before the deal. A knock at my office door interrupted us. Callie stood there, mascara smeared, clutching a USB drive. Your brother, she spat the words, is a lying, cheating bastard. Come in, I said, raising an eyebrow. I'm guessing this isn't about wedding planning. Found these on his laptop. She tossed the drive onto my desk. Every dirty deal, every cooked book, every penny he stole, plus evidence of his extracurricular activities with his assistant. Catherine plugged in the drive, her eyes widening as she scrolled. This is comprehensive. He promised we'd be rich, Callie's voice cracked. Said once he was COO, we'd have everything. Instead, he was stealing company money to finance his gambling debts and God knows what else. I studied her carefully. Why bring this to me? Because you're winning. She met my eyes, and I always bet on the winner. My phone buzzed again. Alex. This time I answered. Ready to deal? He asked smugly. Actually, yes. My office, 1 hour. Bring your evidence about Martinez. After he hung up, Catherine stared at me. What are you planning? A trade. I held up Callie's drive. His future for mine. Alex swaggered in exactly an hour later, waving a folder. Got your attention, didn't I? Sit down, I said quietly. Let's talk about mutually assured destruction. Nothing mutual about it, he smirked. These documents prove you knew about Martinez's connection to your company. That's federal fraud, sis. Interesting. I opened my laptop. Almost as interesting as these bank transfers showing you embezzled $12 million, or these texts to your assistant planning weekend getaways while Callie planned your wedding. His face went from smug to shocked in seconds. How did you? Turns out your fiancé doesn't appreciate being played for a fool. I turned the screen toward him. She gave me everything, Alex, every dirty little secret. You're bluffing. Want to bet your freedom on that? Securities fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud. I clicked through documents. The FBI would have a field day. You wouldn't, he whispered. I'm your brother. And I'm just an expense, remember? I closed the laptop. Here's the deal. You resign quietly, surrender your Martinez evidence, and walk away with your severance. Or I bury you so deep the prison guards will need GPS to find you. Dad was right about you, he snarled. You're nothing but a vindictive bit. Choose carefully, I cut him off. Your next words determine whether you leave here in a cab or handcuffs. He stared at me for a long moment, then dropped the folder on my desk. You win. Happy now? Ecstatic? I pushed a resignation letter toward him. Sign. After he left, Catherine let out a breath. That was close. Too close. I looked at the Martinez folder. We need to clean up any other loose ends. My phone lit up with a news alert. Breaking. Leo Wallace resigns from Stratford and Kane Board, cites unfair practices. Unfair practices, I laughed bitterly. That's rich coming from him. You've won, Catherine said softly. The company's yours. Your father's humiliated. Alex is finished. What more do you want? I walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk fell. The victory felt hollow somehow, empty. Garrett's ready to step in as CEO, Catherine continued. The board supports all your proposals. You've achieved everything you wanted. Had I? The rage that fueled me for 15 years felt different now, quieter, like a fire burning out. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Mum. Your father burned the family photos tonight, all of them, even the ones of you as a baby. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, life went on as normal, while inside, the weight of victory pressed down like lead. Catherine, I said quietly, draw up the CEO paperwork for Garrett and clear my schedule for tomorrow. Where are you going? I thought about those burning photos, about legacy and loss and the price of revenge. Home, I said. I need to see what's left of it. The shareholders' meeting erupted in applause as Garrett finished presenting our restructuring plan. Stock prices had stabilised, confidence was returning, and the press was calling it a masterclass in corporate transformation. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt numb. Brilliant work, a board member gushed, shaking my hand. The Wallace legacy is in good hands. The Wallace legacy. I excused myself and headed to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, I looked successful, powerful, everything I'd dreamed of. So why did victory taste like ashes? My phone buzzed. Mum again. Found something you should see. Come by the house. The drive to my childhood home felt longer than usual. Mum was waiting on the porch, holding a weathered envelope. What's this? I asked, following her inside. Found it in your father's study while he was packing. She handed me the envelope. It's addressed to you, never sent. The letter was dated 15 years ago, right after I'd left for state college. Yesenia, I'm writing this after our fight about your college fund. You slammed the door so hard the pictures shook, just like your mother, all fire and fury. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid because you remind me so much of myself at your age. Ambitious, brilliant, unstoppable. I built this company from nothing, fought my way up, and the hunger I see in your eyes, it terrifies me. I pushed you away because I saw how this life could consume you. Better, I thought, to discourage you than watch you become hard and cold like me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I just couldn't bear seeing you succeed where I failed, at balancing ambition with humanity. I'll probably never send this. We Wallaces aren't good at admitting mistakes. Dad. He never sent it, I said flatly, crumpling the paper. No. Mum touched my arm. He chose pride instead, just like you're choosing revenge. This changes nothing, doesn't it? She led me to the kitchen window. Outside, the trash cans still smouldered with burnt photos. Look what revenge has cost this family. Your father's living in a hotel. Alex is drinking himself into oblivion. And you? I won, I snapped. Did you? Because the daughter I raised wanted to build things, not destroy them. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Stock's up 15% since the meeting. Press wants interviews about the female business prodigy who saved Stratford and Kane. Saved it? I laughed bitterly. I broke it first. Maybe that's why you can fix it, Mum said quietly. You understand how it breaks. A car pulled up outside, Dad's Mercedes. He stepped out, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I should go, I said quickly. Running away again? Mum challenged, like he did with that letter. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Dad stopped short when he saw me, his face a mask of exhaustion and defeat. I'm just getting some files, he said stiffly. Leo, Mum's voice was firm. Sit down, both of you. To my surprise, he did. We sat at the kitchen table, the scene of so many silent dinners, so much unspoken pain. I found your letter, I said finally. He flinched. That was a lifetime ago. Was it true, what you wrote about being afraid? Does it matter now? He gestured vaguely. You've won, taken everything I built. Everything you built? My voice rose. What about what I built? 15 years of work of proving myself while you treated me like nothing. I never saw you as nothing, he shouted back. I saw you as everything I was afraid of becoming. The kitchen fell silent. Outside, a lawn-mower hummed. Inside, decades of pain hung in the air between us. You were right, he said finally, his voice rough. About the company, about Alex, about everything. I was so focused on legacy that I forgot what legacy really means. My phone buzzed again. Catherine. So what's next, boss? What was next? I looked at my father, broken but finally honest. At Mom, who'd saved that letter all these years. At the burnt photos outside, the physical proof of how revenge destroys everything it touches. The company needs new leadership, I said slowly. Real leadership. Not revenge, not pride, just good business. And who's going to provide that? Dad asked. I thought about the ambitious girl who dreamed of building something meaningful, about the woman who'd learned to break things instead, about legacy and redemption and the thin line between justice and vengeance. I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'm starting to remember who I was before revenge became my business plan. Mom reached across the table and took both our hands. For the first time in 15 years, we sat together, not as victor and vanquished, but as a family facing the wreckage we'd all helped create. "So what now?" Dad asked quietly. I looked out at the smouldering trash can. "Now, we rebuild, if we can." "The board is ready for you," Catherine announced, straightening my jacket. "Are you sure about this?" I nodded, gripping the folder containing my proposal. Through the boardroom's glass walls, I could see Garrett talking with the directors. My father sat quietly in his old seat, not as an executive now, but as my invited guest. "Let's do this," I said, pushing open the doors. The room fell silent as I took my place at the podium. Faces turned toward me, some curious, some wary, all waiting to hear what the woman who'd orchestrated both the company's fall and resurrection would say next. 3 months ago, I stood here fueled by revenge, I began. I wanted to destroy what my father built. Instead, I learned something about legacy, about the difference between breaking things and building them. I opened the folder, but I didn't need to read the words. I'd lived them. Stratford & Kane was founded on the idea that logistics means connecting people, not just moving boxes. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. We became about power, about old boys' clubs, about whose name carried more weight. Dad shifted in his seat, but his eyes never left mine. Today, I'm announcing 3 changes. First, I'm stepping down as majority shareholder, distributing those shares into an employee ownership program. Second, we're launching a women's leadership initiative, funding business education for daughters of our employees. Murmurs rippled through the room. Catherine's eyebrows shot up. We hadn't discussed this part. Finally, I continued, I'm establishing the Wallace Innovation Fund with my father as chief advisor. Now Dad's head snapped up, genuine surprise on his face. Not because of nepotism, I added quickly, but because sometimes the people who helped break something are exactly who you need to fix it. They know where the cracks are. After the presentation, after the votes and handshakes and press statements, Dad caught up with me in the hallway. "Chief advisor?" he asked quietly. "If you want it," I replied. "The fund will focus on mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially those who might be overlooked because they don't fit someone's idea of success." Like a daughter who was smarter than her father wanted to admit? Something like that. He rubbed his face tiredly. "I don't deserve this chance." "Probably not," I agreed. "But this isn't about deserving. It's about building something better than what we broke." "And Alex?" "He's in rehab. When he's ready, really ready, there might be a place for him too, but he'll have to earn it." My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. "Dinner tonight? Found more old photos in the attic?" "Speaking of family," I showed him the message. "Want to join us?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that." Back in my office, Catherine was waiting with a stack of papers. "The press is calling you everything from corporate saint to strategic genius, though my favourite headline is, 'The expense who became the investment.'" I laughed. "Frame that one." "But seriously," she perched on my desk, "are you okay with giving up control, everything you fought for?" "I'm not giving up anything," I corrected. "I'm building something new, something that can't be broken by one person's pride or another's revenge." "And the Martinez deal? The evidence Alex had?" "Already disclosed to the SEC with our new transparency initiative. Sometimes owning your mistakes is better than hiding them." A knock at the door. Garrett. "Ready for the transition meeting?" "Actually," I grabbed my coat, "I'm having dinner with my parents. The company can survive without me for one evening." "Look at you," Catherine smirked. "Choosing family over business. Who are you, and what have you done with Yesenia?" "I'm still me," I said, "just better at building than breaking now." Walking through the office, I passed the wall of company photos. My father's stern portrait had been joined by newer images, diverse faces, fresh perspectives, a future built on something stronger than just one family's legacy. At the elevator, I paused to send one last email to the daughter of an employee who'd sent me her business proposal. The subject line read, Your idea matters. Let's talk. The doors opened and I stepped in, catching my reflection in the polished steel. I saw neither the ignored daughter nor the avenging warrior. Just a woman who'd learned that real power isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something better from the ruins. Property of the expense, I whispered, smiling at the old phrase. But this time it meant something different, something stronger. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't vengeance at all. It's proving them wrong by becoming something better than they ever imagined you could be. The crystal flutes clinked as my husband of 10 years raised his glass to address our anniversary party guests. I should have known something was wrong when he insisted on giving the first toast. My name is Willow, and this is the story of how I orchestrated the perfect revenge against the man who thought he could destroy me. Friends, family, Melvin's voice carried across the marble-floored ballroom of our estate. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate what has been. He paused, his practiced smile never reaching his eyes. An educational decade. I maintained my pleasant expression even as I noticed his sister Harmony smirking from her seat. The champagne in my hand was Dom Perignon, his favourite. He'd always said it was too expensive when I wanted to buy it. Marriage teaches us many things, he continued, loosening his bow tie. It teaches us about growth, about change, about knowing when to move forward. His gaze shifted to the corner of the room where his assistant Brianna stood, wearing a dress that cost more than her monthly salary. The air grew thick with anticipation. Summer, my mother-in-law, dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, but I caught the slight upturn of her lips, which is why tonight I'm announcing some changes. Melvin turned to face me directly. Willow, you've been adequate, but it's time we both admitted this marriage has served its purpose. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Our mutual friend Knox choked on his drink. Brianna and I have decided to build a future together, Melvin declared, reaching out his hand. She practically floated to his side, beaming. She understands my vision for the company. She's younger, more ambitious. More fertile, Harmony stage whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I rose slowly from my seat, smoothing my navy silk dress. The room fell silent, everyone waiting for tears, screams, perhaps a scene worthy of reality television. Instead, I smiled. A toast, I said, my voice steady, to new beginnings. Melvin's triumphant expression faltered slightly. He'd expected hysteria, begging, anything but this calm. To the man who taught me that everything has a price, I continued, raising my glass, and to his new beginning with his assistant, who I'm sure will be fascinated to learn about his vasectomy 3 years ago. Brianna's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Willow, Melvin warned, his face reddening. Oh, I'm not finished. I took a deliberate sip. To the Kent family, who never thought I belonged in their world. You were right. I don't belong in your world. You belong in mine. Summer stood up sharply. That's enough. Is it? I asked softly. Because I think 10 years of condescension, manipulation and theft deserve a proper send-off, don't you? Theft? Knox asked, looking between us. Sir Melvin, darling, I purred. Why don't you tell everyone about the offshore accounts? Or should I ask Brianna, since they're in her name? The colour drained from my husband's face. You're delusional, he sputtered. Security! I laughed then, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. Security? In my house? Our house, he corrected automatically. Check again. I placed my empty glass on the table. Check everything, actually. The house, the cars, the company, even that lovely watch you're wearing. I've been very busy these past few months. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by fear. What did you do? I learned from the best, I replied, walking toward the exit. You taught me to take what I want, so I did. I paused at the doorway, turning back to address our stunned guests. "The party's over. Please see yourselves out, all of you. And Melvin, don't bother going to the office tomorrow. Your key card won't work." "You can't do this!" Harmony shrieked, but I was already walking away. Behind me, chaos erupted. I heard glass breaking, accusations flying, Brianna's high-pitched denials about the accounts. But I didn't look back. My heels clicked steadily down the marble hallway, each step taking me closer to freedom. That night, he left thinking he'd humiliated me. What he didn't know was that the house he stood in, the champagne he drank, the business logo behind him, all belonged to me. And starting tomorrow, he'd learn what it means to lose absolutely everything. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Ernest, my lawyer. "It's done. Start the proceedings." His reply came instantly. "Everything's ready. Are you sure about this?" I smiled as I stepped into the warm night air. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The game was set, and I had all the pieces. 3 months earlier, I sat in my home office staring at a single strand of long blonde hair on Melvin's navy suit jacket. I wasn't blonde. Neither was anyone in our household staff. My phone buzzed. Another text from Melvin. "Late meeting. Don't wait up." I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared calendar. 3rd late meeting this week. I clicked through to our joint credit card statements. Expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. Hotel charges in the middle of alleged business trips. The signs had been there for months, maybe years. But that blonde hair was my tipping point. I dialed a number I'd kept buried in my contacts under tax services. Ernest Wolfe speaking. "It's Willow. I need your help." Silence stretched across the line. Ernest had been the Kent family's accountant until Summer forced him out 3 years ago, claiming he was too interested in their private affairs. What she really meant was that he'd questioned their creative bookkeeping. "I was wondering when you'd call," he said finally. 2 hours later, I sat across from him in a private room at a downtown cafe, sliding a USB drive across the table. "Everything I could access is there," I said. "Bank statements, property deeds, company documents." Ernest plugged the drive into his laptop, his expression growing darker as he scrolled. "He's been moving money around, large sums." "To where?" "Multiple accounts, some offshore." He looked up. "When did you first notice?" "The transfers? About 6 months ago, but I think it started before that." I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make my move. Ernest leaned back, studying me. "What exactly are you planning, Willow?" "I want everything he has, everything we built together that he's trying to steal." I met his gaze. "And I want to make sure he never recovers. That's not just divorce territory. What you're suggesting..." He lowered his voice. "If he's committing fraud, this becomes criminal." "Good." Ernest closed his laptop. "I know someone, Levi, former forensic accountant. He can help us trace the money." He hesitated. "But Willow, what you're planning, once it starts, there's no taking it back." "I know." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken that morning, Melvin kissing Brianna in his car, parked 2 blocks from our office. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine. Over the next week, Ernest and Levi dug deeper. The picture they uncovered was worse than I'd imagined. "He's been siphoning company profits through shell corporations," Levi explained, spreading documents across Ernest's desk, then moving them through a series of accounts before they land here. He pointed to a statement. "Under Brianna's name." "How much?" I asked. "Nearly 2 million so far." I laughed hollowly. "The company I helped him build, the clients I brought in, he's stealing it all for his mistress." "There's more," Ernest said quietly. "The property transfers, the new business registrations, they're all structured to cut you out. He's been planning this for at least a year." My hands shook as I picked up the papers. Can we prove it? Yes, but proving it isn't enough. Ernest's eyes met mine. You need to act first. What do you mean? Right now, he thinks you're oblivious. Use that. Ernest pulled out a legal pad. We can start moving assets, restructuring ownership, but you'll have to play along. Act normal. Can you do that? I thought about every fake smile, every condescending pat on the head from his family, every time I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. I've been acting normal for 10 years, I said. What's a few more months? That night, I went home and cooked Melvin's favourite dinner. I listened to his lies about his late meeting. I kissed him goodnight and waited until his breathing evened out in sleep. Then I slipped into his study and photographed every document in his private safe. The combination was my birthday, the one thing he'd never bothered to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Ernest. Started the paperwork. No going back now. I looked at Melvin's sleeping form and typed back. Good. He wants to play games. Let's show him how it's done. Another buzz. Be careful. The Kents are powerful enemies to make. I smiled in the darkness. They're about to learn that quiet wives make the most dangerous opponents. I slipped back into bed, my mind already racing with plans. Melvin stirred slightly. Everything okay, he mumbled. Everything's perfect, I whispered. Just perfect. He had no idea that while he dreamed of his future with Brianna, I was carefully dismantling every piece of the life he thought was his. The game was just beginning, and I intended to win. When are you two finally going to give us grandchildren? Summer's question cut through the Sunday dinner conversation like a knife. Brianna, dear, pass the salt. I watched as Melvin's assistant, invited to our weekly family dinner for the 3rd time this month, reached across me to hand the salt shaker to my mother-in-law. Her wedding ring finger was bare, but there was a faint tan line where a ring had recently been. Mother, Melvin cleared his throat, we've discussed this. Well, I just think at Willow's age, Harmony chimed in, swirling her wine. Tick-tock, right? I speared a piece of asparagus with my fork. How thoughtful of you to worry about my biological clock, Harmony. How's the divorce going? Silence fell over the table. Harmony's face turned red. That was uncalled for, Summer snapped. Was it? I smiled sweetly. I thought we were sharing family concerns. Under the table, my phone buzzed. A text from Levi. Found something big. Meet tonight. Speaking of family business, Melvin interrupted, Brianna's been doing exceptional work at the office. I'm thinking of making her head of client relations. My position. Well, my former position before he'd convinced me to step back and focus on our future family. That's wonderful news, Summer beamed. Finally, someone with fresh energy in that role. I typed back to Levi. Can't tonight, still playing Happy Families. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Willow, Brianna's voice dripped with fake sympathy. I hope you don't feel replaced. I know how much the company means to you. Not at all, I replied, watching her hand brush Melvin's arm. I'm sure you'll bring something special to the position. Later that night, I sat in our home office, reviewing the documents Ernest had prepared. Property transfers, power of attorney forms, new company registrations, all waiting for Melvin's signature. Working late? Melvin appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. Just some charity board paperwork. I closed the laptop. You know how it is. He crossed the room, placing his hands on my shoulders. You work too hard on these little projects. I forced myself not to flinch at his touch. Someone has to maintain our social obligations. True. He squeezed my shoulders. That's what makes us such a good team. The next morning, I met Levi at a coffee shop across town. Look at this, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Offshore account in Brianna's name, but look who's been making the deposits. I opened the folder. Wire transfers, all from a company I'd never heard of. It's a shell corporation, Levi explained. Melvin's been transferring company funds through it for months. He's stealing what's yours. I smiled, closing the folder. No, he's handing me the noose. What do you mean? These transfers, they're traceable, right? Levi nodded. That's how I found them. And they're definitely unauthorized by the board. Completely illegal. I took a sip of my coffee. Then we have him, but not yet. Let him keep going. Let him think he's winning. That evening, I attended a charity gala with Melvin. Brianna was there, hovering at the edges of conversations, playing her part. Mrs. Kent, a board member's wife approached us. I heard about the company's expansion plans. How exciting! Oh, I'm not really involved in the business anymore, I said, watching Melvin's satisfied smirk. I leave all that to my brilliant husband. And Brianna, Harmony appeared, champagne in hand. She's been such an asset. Speaking of assets, I turned to Melvin. Darling, did you sign those papers I left on your desk for the charity foundation? He waved dismissively. Yes, this morning. I excused myself to the powder room and pulled out my phone. Ernest, did you get the confirmations? His reply came quickly. All signed, property transfers complete. He didn't even read them. I looked in the mirror, adjusting my pearls, a wedding gift from Summer. In the reflection, I could see Brianna laughing at something Melvin said, her hand resting on his arm. Enjoy it while it lasts, I whispered. My phone buzzed again. Levi. Found another transfer, bigger this time, $500K to the offshore account. I typed back, Perfect, let him dig his grave deeper. When I returned to the party, Melvin was giving a speech about family legacy and business success. I stood beside him, the perfect wife, smiling and nodding. To the future, he raised his glass. To getting exactly what we deserve, I added. He had no idea that every signature, every transfer, every lie was another step toward his own destruction, and I was just getting started. I stood outside my sister Mary's apartment, my hand hovering over the doorbell. 5 years of silence stretched between us like a chasm, but I needed her. Specifically, I needed what our grandmother had left her. The door opened before I could knock. You look terrible, Mary said, leaning against the doorframe. Hello to you too. She studied me for a moment. This isn't a social call, is it? No. I met her eyes. I need access to Grandma's trust documents. Mary laughed sharply. The same trust you said I was greedy for wanting to protect? She stepped aside, letting me in. Coffee? Her apartment was smaller than I remembered, but warmer. Family photos covered one wall, including ones of us as children that I'd forgotten existed. Melvin's stealing from me, I said, accepting the coffee mug she offered, and he's sleeping with his assistant. Shit, Mary sat across from me. The perfect power couple isn't so perfect. I'm taking everything from him. I pulled out my phone, showing her Ernest's documents. But I need Grandma's property trust to close the loop, the one you manage. The one you said was worthless? Mary's voice was bitter. The one you let Melvin talk you into signing away your rights to? I was wrong. The words felt like glass in my throat. About everything. About you. Mary was quiet for a long moment. Show me what you need. For the next hour, we pored over trust documents and property deeds. The trust, it turned out, had a connection to land that Melvin's new development project depended on. If I sign this over to you, Mary said, holding the final paper, what happens? His project falls apart, the investors pull out, and the money he's been hiding. I smiled. It all comes to light. Mary picked up her pen. Good. Back at Ernest's office, we finalised the transfers. The shell companies are now under your sole control, Ernest explained, spreading papers across his desk. The intellectual property rights, the client contracts, all yours. What about the offshore accounts? I asked. Levi spoke up from his corner. Still in Brianna's name, but we've documented every transfer Melvin made. When this breaks, they're both going down. Speaking of Melvin, Ernest turned his laptop toward me. Look what I found. On the screen was a flight confirmation. 2 first-class tickets to the Maldives booked under Melvin and Brianna's names, 1 week after our upcoming anniversary. Perfect, I said. Let him pack light. That evening, I had dinner with Knox, carefully planting seeds of doubt about Melvin's business practices. I'm worried about him, I confided, playing the concerned wife. He's been so secretive about the finances lately. Knox frowned. Now that you mention it, some of the recent deals have seemed odd. I'm sure it's nothing, I said, watching the concern grow on his face. Though, if you hear anything, I'll keep an eye out, he promised. Later that night, Melvin came home late again, reeking of Brianna's perfume. How was your meeting? I asked, not looking up from my book. Productive, he loosened his tie. We're close to closing the Riverside development deal. Wonderful, I turned a page. Did you need any signatures from me? No, he waved dismissively. I've handled everything. I smiled behind my book. If only he knew what those handled signatures had actually been for. My phone buzzed. A text from Mary. Trust transfer complete. You now control the Riverside property access. Coming to bed, Melvin called from our room. In a minute, I replied, typing back to Mary. Thank you for everything. Her response came quickly. Make him pay, then come visit. We have catching up to do. I changed into my nightgown and slipped into bed beside my husband, maintaining the facade for just a little longer. In less than a month, he would lose everything. His money, his reputation, his mistress, his family's respect. I love you, he murmured, already half asleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of the documents safely stored with Ernest, the property now in my name, the evidence of every lie and theft carefully documented. I know, I whispered. My phone lit up one last time. Ernest. Final papers filed. No going back now. Are you ready? I looked at Melvin's sleeping form, remembering every dismissive comment, every secret meeting, every time he'd made me feel small. Ready, I typed back. Start the countdown. In 3 weeks he would stand in front of our friends and family, thinking he was about to humiliate me. Instead, he would discover just how badly he'd underestimated his quiet, supportive wife. I closed my eyes, finally allowing myself to smile. Sometimes revenge is best served not cold, but with meticulous precision and perfect timing. I need space, I told Melvin over breakfast, exactly 1 week before our anniversary. I'm going to stay at the lake house for a few days. He barely looked up from his phone. Whatever you need, dear. I'd already packed my essential documents and irreplaceable items. The movers had secretly relocated my grandmother's antiques days ago. Everything was in position. Don't forget about the anniversary party, he said as I headed for the door. Mother's put a lot of effort into it. I'm sure she has, I thought, remembering Summer's smug smile during the planning meetings. At the lake house, I met with Ernest and Levi one final time. Everything's in place, Ernest said, reviewing his checklist. The company ownership transfer is complete. Properties are secured. All we need now is... My phone rang. Knox's name flashed on the screen. Willow? His voice was urgent. Did you know Melvin just took out a $2 million business loan against the company? He listed both your names. I put the phone on speaker. When? This morning. Something about the Riverside development. Knox paused. Look, as your friend, something feels off. He's been making weird moves. Thank you, Knox. Keep this between us. After hanging up, I turned to Ernest. He's getting desperate. The Riverside project is falling apart, Levi confirmed, pulling up financial reports. Without the property access Mary transferred to you, his investors are backing out. And now he's taking out emergency loans, Ernest added, using your name without consent. Can we use this? Ernest's smile was cold. It's the final nail in his coffin. That afternoon, Harmony showed up unannounced at the lake house. Running away won't save you, she said, barging in. Melvin's told us everything, how you've been unstable, threatening to ruin him. I poured myself a glass of wine. Would you like some? This isn't a social call. She slammed her designer bag on my counter. We know you've been meeting with Ernest. Whatever you're planning, stop now. Or what? Or we'll destroy you. She leaned forward. The Kents protect their own. I took a slow sip. Funny, that's exactly what I'm doing too. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see. At the anniversary party. I walked to the door, holding it open. Give my love to your mother. After she left, I called Mary. They're getting nervous. Good, my sister replied. How's the lake house? Empty, like my marriage. I watched the sunset over the water. I never thanked you properly for helping me. Just promise me one thing, Mary said. When it's done, don't disappear again. That night, Ernest called with a warning. Melvin's lawyers are circling. They're trying to find weaknesses. Let them look, I said. Everything we've done is legal. He's the one who's been committing fraud. Still, Ernest's voice softened. Are you sure you want to go through with the public reveal? We could handle this quietly. I thought about years of public humiliation, of being patted on the head and told to know my place. No, he chose to make it public. So will I. The next day, I received flowers at the lake house from Brianna. The card read, I hope you find peace with what's coming. Change is hard. I photographed the card and sent it to Levi. Add it to the evidence file. 3 days before the anniversary party, Knox called again. Melvin's telling people you had a breakdown, that you're not well. Is he now? I checked my watch. Almost time for my meeting with the SEC investigators. How convenient. Willow, Knox hesitated. Whatever's really going on. Be careful. I hung up and grabbed my portfolio of evidence. Ernest was waiting in his car outside. Ready? He asked as I slid into the passenger seat. They think I'm having a breakdown, I said, checking my lipstick in the mirror. Let's show them what a breakdown really looks like. The meeting with the investigators took 2 hours. When we emerged, Ernest was grinning. They're opening a formal investigation, he confirmed. The timing couldn't be better. My phone buzzed. A text from Melvin. Coming home soon? We need to discuss the party. Not yet, I replied, still finding my peace. Ernest touched my arm. Last chance to back out. I looked at him, this man who'd become my unexpected ally. You know what they say about revenge being best served cold? He nodded. I prefer it served in front of witnesses, I said, with absolutely perfect timing. 3 days. In 3 days, Melvin would learn exactly what happens when you underestimate a quiet wife with a very, very long memory. The annual Investors' Gala coincidentally fell on the same night as our anniversary party. Melvin had combined the events, eager to show off his new future to everyone who mattered in our social circle. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a red dress that cost more than Brianna's monthly salary. The ballroom fell silent as I walked in. Darling, Melvin's voice was tight. We weren't sure you'd come. And missed this? I smiled, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Never. Summer appeared at my elbow. You look recovered. Amazing what a few days of clarity can do. Melvin took the stage, tapping his glass for attention. Friends, investors, family, thank you for coming tonight. As you know, we're celebrating multiple occasions. I watched Brianna hover near the stage, practically vibrating with anticipation. First, the Riverside development project is proceeding ahead of schedule. He paused for applause. Second, some of you may have heard rumours about changes in my personal life. Knox appeared beside me. Willow, what's happening? Watch, I whispered. The truth is, Melvin continued, sometimes we must make difficult choices for growth. My wife's instability has unfortunately affected our business relationships. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, but tonight marks a new chapter, with Brianna by my side. Actually, I cut in, my voice carrying across the room, I'd like to make an announcement of my own. Willow, he warned, don't make a scene. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Ladies and gentlemen, my husband speaks of instability. Let's talk about that. Ernest and Levi emerged from the crowd, carrying folders. What's this? Melvin demanded. The audit findings, I said sweetly. Would you like to explain the offshore accounts? Or shall I? The colour drained from his face. Perhaps Brianna can explain, I continued, since they're in her name. Brianna started backing away from the stage. Or we could discuss the unauthorised loans. I turned to face the investors. The ones he took out using my forged signatures? She's lying, Melvin sputtered. Security! They don't work for you anymore, I said. None of them do. Check your phone. He pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically. You'll find the company ownership has been restructured. I nodded to Ernest, who began distributing documents to the board members. Along with all associated properties and intellectual property rights. You can't do this, Summer shrieked. I already have. I turned back to the stunned crowd. My husband called me unstable. What he meant was that I finally stopped being stable enough to ignore his fraud. Knox stepped forward. The Riverside project? Built on stolen money and forged permits, Levi confirmed. The SEC has been notified. This is ridiculous, Melvin laughed desperately. I built this company. No, I said quietly. We built it, and then you tried to steal it. Brianna suddenly bolted for the door. 2 SEC agents stepped out of the shadows to block her path. The company is mine now, I continued, along with everything else. The house, the cars, the art collection, all legally transferred with your signature. You really should read what you're signing, darling. Harmony rushed to her brother's side. Our lawyers will... Do nothing, Ernest interrupted. Everything was done legally. Your brother's fraud, however. The SEC agents were moving through the crowd now, collecting evidence and taking statements. You said I was nothing without you, I said to Melvin, who stood frozen on stage. I made sure that's all you'd have left. Nothing. Willow, please, he reached for me. We can talk about this. I stepped back. We're done talking. Check your email. My lawyers will be in touch. As I turned to leave, Summer grabbed my arm. You ungrateful little... Careful, I warned. The trust that owns your house? I control that now too. Mary says hello, by the way. The ballroom erupted into chaos behind me as I walked out. Investors shouting about lawsuits, Brianna crying as agents questioned her, Melvin's family trying desperately to maintain control. Knox followed me to the door. How long have you been planning this? Long enough. I handed him my champagne glass. Thank you for being a good friend. Will you be okay? I looked back at the scene, my husband of 10 years, watching his carefully constructed world crumble, finally understanding what it meant to lose everything. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. Outside, Ernest waited by his car. That was quite a show. It's not over, I replied, but phase 1 is complete. Where to now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Home, my home, the one he can't enter anymore. The night air was cool on my skin as we drove away, leaving behind the sound of sirens approaching the gala. Sometimes karma needs a little help, and I was more than happy to assist. The morning after the gala, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News outlets, investors, old friends, everyone wanted a statement. I turned it off and watched the movers pack up the last of Melvin's things. "Where should we deliver these?" the head mover asked. "His mother's house," I replied. "They always wanted him to move back home." Ernest arrived with coffee and the morning papers. "Your front page news! Business empire crumbles amid fraud allegations," I read aloud. "They spelled my name right at least." "Melvin's been served with multiple lawsuits," Ernest said, settling into my kitchen chair. "The investors are out for blood." "And Brianna?" "Singing like a canary to the SEC." He smiled. "Turns out she kept receipts." My doorbell rang. It was Knox. "You look terrible," I said, letting him in. "Yeah, well, I spent all night answering questions from federal agents." He collapsed onto my couch. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" He was quiet for a moment. "Probably not. We all bought his act." "Speaking of acts," Ernest interrupted, checking his phone, "Harmony's outside the gate demanding entry." I pulled up the security camera feed. Melvin's sister was indeed there, looking considerably less polished than usual. "Let her in," I said. "This should be interesting." Harmony burst into my living room minutes later, waving papers. "You evil, calculating witch! Good morning to you too. The trust fund, you can't just cut us off." She threw the papers at me. "That money belongs to our family." "Actually," I picked up the scattered documents, "it belongs to whoever controls the trust, which is now me, thanks to Mary." "We'll fight this," she threatened. "With what money?" I asked sweetly. "Your accounts are frozen pending the fraud investigation. Your credit cards are maxed out. And that divorce settlement you've been living on?" I shrugged. "The payments stopped this morning." Harmony's face crumpled. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you all thought I was nothing, just the quiet wife who should be grateful for the scraps from your table." I stood up. "How's it feel to be on the other side?" After she left, Knox whistled low. "Remind me never to cross you." My phone buzzed again. Summer this time. I let it go to voicemail. "Mrs. Kent," her message dripped with venom, "you've turned our blood into strangers. I hope you're satisfied with destroying this family." I deleted the message and turned to Ernest. "How's the media strategy?" "Press release goes out in an hour. Your statement about discovering financial irregularities, trying to handle it privately, being forced to take action." He handed me the draft. "You come off looking like the responsible party who had no choice." "Because that's exactly what happened," Knox added. Later that afternoon, I visited my old office, now mine again. Brianna's desk was empty, her personal items gone. "She left this for you," my assistant said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a letter. "I never meant for it to go this far. He promised me everything, just like he promised you. I'm sorry." I dropped the letter in the shredder. Levi called with updates. "Melvin's trying to access emergency funds, but everything's locked down. He showed up at 3 different banks today." "And the offshore accounts?" "Frozen. He's basically running on whatever cash he had in his wallet." That evening, I walked through my house one last time before the renovations began. Every room held the memories, dinner parties where I'd been talked over, holidays where I'd been belittled, quiet moments where I'd planned my revenge. My phone buzzed with a text from Melvin. "Please, we need to talk. I'll explain everything." I typed back, "Talk to my lawyers." Another buzz, Mary this time. "Saw the news. You okay?" "Better than okay," I replied. "Having dinner tomorrow. Bring wine, the expensive kind you can actually afford now." Ernest found me in the study, staring at old photos. "You won," he said quietly, "but you also burned every bridge. Are you ready for what comes next?" I picked up a picture from my wedding day, all those smiling faces, all those hidden agendas. I didn't burn the bridges, I said, dropping the photo in a box marked Donate. I demolished the foundations they stood on. And now? I looked around the room that had witnessed so many quiet humiliations. Now I rebuild, but this time everything will be in my name. Outside, I could hear reporters still camped at the gate, hungry for more details about the scandal. Let them wait. The best revenge stories, after all, take time to fully unfold, and this one was far from over. The doorbell chimed as I finished unpacking the last box in my new penthouse office. Mary stood in the doorway, holding a newspaper. "Have you seen this?" She tossed it on my desk. The headline read, "Former business titan pleads guilty to fraud charges." "Melvin always did hate Prison Orange," I said, pouring us both coffee. "Brianna took a plea deal," Mary added, settling into a chair. 5 years probation in exchange for testimony. And the Kents. Summer's selling their house. Harmony's moving in with her ex-husband. Mary smiled. "Karma's been busy." My phone buzzed. Knox sending a photo from the courthouse steps. Melvin being led away in handcuffs, his designer suit replaced by standard-issue clothing. "You should frame that," Mary suggested. "No, I deleted the photo. I'm done keeping souvenirs." The intercom buzzed. "Miss Perkins, your 9 o'clock is here." "Send them in." 3 women entered, all wearing wedding rings, all carrying folders. "Thank you for meeting with us," the first one said. "After reading about your story, you want to know if your husbands are stealing from you," I finished. They nodded. "That's why I started this consulting firm," I said, gesturing for them to sit, "to help women protect themselves legally and financially." "Can you really help?" the youngest asked. "That's why she has me," Ernest said, walking in with his signature leather briefcase. "Sorry I'm late. Court ran long." As Ernest began explaining their legal options, I stepped out onto my private balcony. The city sprawled below, full of possibilities I'd never seen when I was just Melvin's wife. Mary followed me out. "You've built something good here." "We've built something good," I corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "About that," she hesitated. "I'm thinking of joining the firm, officially. My accounting skills could help." I hugged her, our first real hug in years. "Welcome aboard." Back inside, Ernest was finishing up with the clients. After they left, he lingered. "Dinner tonight?" he asked, "to celebrate the guilty plea?" "Not to celebrate that," I said, "but yes to dinner." Whatever was growing between Ernest and me was slow, careful, nothing like the whirlwind that swept me into Melvin's world. We were both too scarred for rushing. My assistant brought in the afternoon mail. Among the letters was a cream envelope, Summer's distinctive stationery. "Dear Willow," it read, "you've won, completely. But know this, you're alone now. No family, no connections, no social circle. Was it worth it?" I picked up my phone and took a photo of the letter, sending it to Mary with the caption, "Lunch with my sister tomorrow." Her reply was instant. "Only if you're buying, Ms. CEO." The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Perkins, Levi's here with the quarterly reports." "Send him in." I turned to Ernest. "Stay for this. We're launching the Women's Financial Literacy Program." He smiled. "Wouldn't miss it." Levi spread the reports across my conference table. Profits are up 200% since the rebranding. The waiting list for consultations is 3 months long. "Good," I said. "More women learning to protect themselves." "Speaking of protection," Ernest added, "the trust fund reforms you proposed. The legislature's voting next month." I looked around my office. At Mary reviewing spreadsheets, Ernest organising case files, Levi plotting growth charts. This was my family now, my real family. The sun was setting when everyone finally left. I stood at my window, watching the city lights flicker on. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Knox. Heard Melvin's going away for 10 years minimum. You okay? I thought about Summer's letter, about being alone, about the women in my office today, seeking help, about Mary coming back into my life, about Ernest's patient understanding. Better than okay, I replied. I'm exactly where I should be. On my desk, a small plaque caught the fading light. It was my first corporate award given last month. The inscription read, "For empowering women to reclaim their financial freedom." They tried to write me off as a quiet wife. What they forgot is that even quiet storms level cities, and I only needed one night to remind him I was never his to silence. I picked up my coat and turned off the lights. Ernest would be waiting downstairs. Mary wanted brunch plans for Sunday. The women from this morning needed follow-up calls. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Every decision, every consequence, every victory, mine. And that was worth everything.
I've always been the invisible daughter, the reliable one, the boring one, the one who shows up early to help set up family gatherings and stays late to clean, while my sister Simone makes her grand entrance, fashionably late, to thunderous applause. My name is Marley, and I'm a tax auditor. Go ahead and yawn. Everyone else does when I tell them that. My mother certainly does, right before launching into another story about how Simone just landed another modeling gig or booked another luxury vacation. "Marley, honey, could you grab the mimosa pitcher?" Mom called from across our weekly family brunch table. "And maybe loosen up that cardigan. It's making you look so severe." I poured her drink, ignoring the comment about my clothes. The cardigan was cashmere and cost more than Simone's last rent payment. Not that anyone would notice. "Oh my God, everyone!" Simone burst through the front door, perfectly timed to interrupt the quiet conversation. "Rhett proposed." The shrieking started immediately. Mom jumped up, knocking over her fresh mimosa. "My baby, let me see the ring." I grabbed a cloth and started cleaning the spill while everyone clustered around Simone. The diamond on her finger caught the light, throwing sparkles across the wall. "It's 5 carats, Simone announced proudly. "Rhett says nothing less would do for his princess." "Speaking of princess treatment," Mom gushed, "we should start planning the wedding immediately. Something grand befitting the occasion." Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the same way he had 5 years ago when his business collapsed. I watched his hands tighten around his coffee cup. "Actually," Simone said, "Rhett and I were thinking of having it at the Bellamy Hotel. They have this amazing ballroom." "The Bellamy?" I couldn't help interrupting. "That's at least $50,000 for just the venue." Simone rolled her eyes. "God, Marley, not everything has to be about budgets and spreadsheets. This is my special day." "Don't worry about the money," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "We can always tap into the house equity. It's practically paid off anyway." My stomach dropped. The house. My house. Though they didn't know that. Not yet. "Besides," Simone added with a smirk, "some of us chose careers that actually pay well instead of counting other people's pennies all day." I bit my tongue, like always. If they only knew those pennies had kept this roof over their heads for the past 5 years. Every mortgage payment, every property tax bill, every repair, paid in full from my boring accountant's salary while they lived in blissful ignorance. "Oh!" Simone clapped her hands. "That reminds me, we're having an engagement gala next month. Black tie, of course. Zaylee's handling the social media coverage." She pulled out a thick cream envelope and slid it across the table to me. "Try to wear something festive. Maybe Christine can help you shop. You know, something that doesn't scream IRS audit." Mom laughed. "Now, Simone, be nice to your sister. Marley does her best with what she has." I opened the envelope, scanning the details. My eyes caught on the venue cost. $25,000 for one night. That was exactly what I'd paid for the emergency roof repair last winter, the one Dad still thought insurance had covered. "We're going all out," Simone continued. "Daddy said we could use whatever we need from the house value. It's not like anyone else needs it, right, Marley?" I looked up from the invitation to find everyone staring at me, waiting for my usual acquiescence. The good daughter, the reliable one, the boring one who never makes waves. My phone buzzed, a mortgage alert. I pulled it out, hands shaking slightly as I read the notification. Congratulations, your final payment has been processed. 5 years of secret payments, 60 months of swallowing their jabs while carrying their financial burden, all leading to this moment when they were planning to cash out my investment for Simone's fairy tale wedding. I smiled tightly, tucking both the phone and the invitation into my purse. Sounds wonderful, I said, standing up. I should get going. Some of us work on Sundays. Typical Marley, Simone sighed, always running off to her little office. I paused at the door, looking back at my family gathered around the brunch table. They had already forgotten I was leaving, focused entirely on Simone's ring. By the way, I said quietly, though no one was listening anymore, I'll definitely be at the gala. Wouldn't miss it for the world. And for the first time in 5 years, I meant every word. The pre-engagement dinner was exactly as excruciating as I'd expected. Mom had rented out the entire rooftop of La Maison, where a single glass of wine cost more than I typically spent on groceries in a week. Marley! Rhett's voice boomed across the terrace. Still keeping America's taxes in check? I forced a smile as he approached, Simone draped across his arm like a designer accessory. Someone has to. God, how do you not die of boredom? Simone asked, sipping her champagne. I'd rather shoot myself than stare at numbers all day. Speaking of numbers, Rhett winked. We've got some exciting plans for that old house of yours. Prime real estate like that, just sitting there. Criminal. I gripped my wine glass tighter. What plans? Oh, don't worry about it, Mom cut in, appearing beside us. We'll handle all the details. You just focus on, well, whatever it is you do all day. The memory hit me like a physical blow. Dad in the garage 5 years ago, surrounded by foreclosure notices, his head in his hands. I've lost everything, he'd whispered when I found him. The business, our savings, the house. How do I tell your mother? I'd made the decision that night, sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open to my banking app. The refinancing paperwork had been simple enough. Dad's signature wasn't hard to replicate after years of watching him sign my school forms. Marley, Simone's sharp voice yanked me back to the present. Hello? I asked if you're bringing a +1 to the gala. No, I replied. Just me. Shocking, she drawled. You know, if you'd just let me set you up with someone... I'm good, thanks. Are you, though? Mom tilted her head. 33 is getting a bit concerning, dear. Rhett chuckled. Hey, nothing wrong with being married to your job. Someone's got to keep the IRS running while the rest of us live a little. I excused myself to the bathroom, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone and dialed Christine. They're planning to sell it, I hissed when she answered. The house I've been paying for. They're going to cash it out for Simone's wedding. Tell them, Christine said immediately. Marley, this is insane. You've been carrying them for years while they treat you like garbage. It's not that simple. Actually, it is. The house is legally yours. I helped you with the paperwork, remember? One word from you and their whole fantasy comes crashing down. I leaned against the bathroom wall, closing my eyes. Dad would be humiliated. Your dad's pride isn't your responsibility. Neither is Simone's wedding or your mom's social status. Before I could respond, I heard Mom's voice outside the bathroom. Of course we'll get at least $500,000 for it in this market. Marley won't mind. She knows her place. My blood ran cold. Knows her place? I whispered into the phone. Did she actually just say that? That's it, Christine said firmly. I'm coming over tonight with wine, and we're planning your revenge. This ends now. Back at the table, Simone was holding court, describing her dream wedding. The flower budget alone is $50,000, but Daddy said we can make it work once we sell that old house. Dad stared into his whiskey, silent. To new beginnings, Rhett raised his glass. And goodbye to that outdated property, am I right? My phone buzzed. Another notification. Mortgage payment confirmed. Congratulations on your final payment. Property deed transfer complete. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Leaving already? Mom sighed. You always duck out early. Some of us work for a living, Simone added with a smirk. Yes, I said quietly. Some of us do. I drove straight to Christine's house, where she was already waiting with 2 bottles of wine and my favorite takeout. Look what came in the mail today, I said, pulling out the mortgage statement and property deed. Christine's eyes widened as she read. Holy shit, it's official. You own it free and clear. 5 years, I said, my voice breaking. 5 years of payments, of secrets, of smiling through their jokes. And now they want to sell it for Simone's wedding? So don't let them. Christine poured us each a generous glass. The engagement gala is in 2 weeks. Everyone will be there. All their friends, Zaylee with her social media following. You want me to expose them, publicly? I want you to stop being their doormat. She handed me a glass. They're planning to sell your house, Marley. Your house. What are you going to do about it? I took a long sip of wine, thinking about Mom's words. Knows her place. You know what? I said finally. I think it's time they learned exactly what my place is. Christine grinned. Now that's what I've been waiting to hear. Let's plan this properly. Are you sure you want to do this? Christine asked, watching me organize the stack of documents spread across my dining room table. Look at this, I said, holding up a bank statement. December 2018. Furnace died during the coldest week of the year. $8,000. Dad told everyone his business insurance covered it. I picked up another paper. March 2020. Property taxes due right after COVID hit. They thought the bank forgave the payment. No, that was me, working overtime during lockdown to cover it. Christine picked up the original deed transfer, examining my careful forgery of Dad's signature. You know this was technically fraud, right? I know. I shuffled the papers into chronological order. But the mortgage is paid now, and the deed's officially in my name. Nothing illegal about that. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Don't forget to RSVP for the gala. Wear something nice this time. I showed Christine the message. They're really going to try to sell my house at their party. Then RSVP yes, Christine said, grabbing my phone. Let me do it. She typed quickly. Wouldn't miss it. And don't worry, I'll dress appropriately for the occasion. That sounds ominous, I laughed. Good. Christine handed the phone back. It should. I spent the next week gathering every receipt, every transfer record, every legal document proving my ownership. Each paper was a memory, a moment when I'd chosen family peace over personal recognition. The garage door opener I'd replaced last summer, the water heater from 2 years ago, the property insurance I'd maintained in Dad's name to keep up appearances. You're being methodical, Christine observed, watching me create a timeline. Like you're preparing for an audit. I am an auditor, I reminded her. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it right. My phone rang, Mom's number. Darling, she trilled when I answered, we're meeting with the real estate agent tomorrow about the house. Just a preliminary discussion, you understand. No need for you to come. Of course not, I said smoothly. Why would I need to be there? Exactly. You're so good about these things, Molly, not making a fuss. Unlike your sister, she's insisting on interviewing every wedding planner in the state. I could hear Simone in the background. Mom, tell her about the dress budget. Oh, yes, Mom continued. We're thinking of increasing the wedding budget. That old house should fetch enough to cover everything Simone dreams of. You don't mind, do you? It's not like you're using it. My hand tightened around the phone. No, Mom, I don't mind at all. After hanging up, I turned to Christine. They're meeting a real estate agent tomorrow. Can they even do that without your permission? They don't know they need it. I pulled out my laptop. But I think it's time to make some calls of my own. I spent the afternoon contacting the property lawyer who'd helped me with the deed transfer. Then I called my bank, the insurance company, and finally, a real estate agent of my own. Just exploring my options, I told her. The property might be available soon. Christine watched me work, a small smile on her face. You're really doing this. They're going to hate me, I said quietly. They already take you for granted. What's the difference? My phone buzzed again, a message from Zaylee. Cuz, can't wait to see you at the gala. I'm handling all the social coverage. It's going to be epic. I showed Christine the message. Looks like we'll have an audience. Perfect. She picked up the property deed. Nothing like a live stream for maximum impact. I looked at the invitation on my fridge, 2 weeks away. The venue, the time, the dress code all spelled out in elegant script. Below it, a candid photo of Simone and Rhett beaming at the camera. You know what the worst part is? I said, staring at the invitation. They genuinely don't think they're doing anything wrong. They really believe they're entitled to my house. Then it's time they learned otherwise. Christine stood up, gathering her purse. Want to go shopping? If we're going to destroy their dreams, you should at least look amazing doing it. I glanced at the stack of documents, 5 years of secrets, ready to be exposed. You know what? Yes, I grabbed my keys. Let's find something unforgettable. As we left, my phone buzzed one last time. Mom again. Darling, the real estate agent says we could list as early as next month. Isn't that wonderful? Simone's dreams are finally coming true. I didn't respond. In 2 weeks, they'd all learn whose dreams really mattered. The vineyard estate glittered with thousands of fairy lights as I pulled into the parking lot. Zaylee's Instagram Live was already running, her cheerful voice narrating arrivals like a red carpet commentator. And here comes the sister of the bride, she squealed as I stepped out of my car. Marley's wearing... Oh. I smoothed down my simple black dress, expensive but understated. The manila envelope in my clutch felt heavy with purpose. Marley, Mom's voice cut through the crowd. Couldn't you have worn something more festive? This is a celebration. I dressed appropriately, I said, patting my envelope. Trust me. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of champagne and designer dresses. Simone held court near the stage, Rhett's arm draped possessively around her waist. Oh my God, you actually came, Simone called out. And you're wearing black to my engagement party. How very... you. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Zaylee flitted around with her phone, documenting everything. We've got over 1,000 viewers already. This is going viral, I can feel it. Perfect timing, Simone announced, climbing onto the small stage. Everyone, if I could have your attention. The crowd hushed. I noticed Dad standing alone near the bar, looking uncomfortable in his rented tuxedo. First, I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate our love story, Simone began, her voice syrupy sweet. Rhett and I are so blessed to have such amazing friends and family. She paused, her eyes finding me in the crowd. Speaking of family, I want to thank my sister Marley for being here. She's like wallpaper, really. Always there, never noticed, but somehow keeping everything together. Laughter rippled through the audience. I took another sip of champagne, waiting. I mean, someone has to be the boring one, right? Simone continued. While I was traveling the world, modeling, living life, Marley was... What were you doing again? Spreadsheets? More laughter. Zaylee zoomed in with her phone, capturing my face. But that's what makes her special, Simone said with fake sincerity. She never asks for attention, never demands anything, just stays in her lane, doing her little job. Mom stepped up next, taking the microphone. And speaking of staying in lanes, we have a wonderful announcement to make. This was it. I slipped the envelope from my clutch. As many of you know, we've lived in our family home for 30 years, Mom continued. But now, to help make Simone's dream wedding a reality, we've decided to sell. Appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Dad's knuckles went white around his whiskey glass. The market's excellent, and the house is nearly paid off, Mom beamed. Sometimes things just work out perfectly, don't they? Marley doesn't have much, but her love is enough. Isn't that right, dear? She gestured to me, expecting my usual quiet compliance. The crowd turned, waiting. Actually, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet room, I'd like to say something. Oh, Mom faltered. Well, of course, but maybe later. Now would be better. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Zaylee's camera followed my every move. Marley, Simone hissed, don't make this about you. I took the microphone from Mom's reluctant hands. You're right about one thing, Simone. I am always there, keeping everything together. But there's something you should know about that house you're planning to sell. I opened the envelope, pulling out the deed. It's mine. The silence was absolute. Even the waiters stopped moving. What do you mean, yours? Mom laughed nervously. I mean, I own it, legally, completely. I have for the past 5 years. I held up the deed. Ever since Dad's business failed and we were about to lose everything. That's impossible, Simone snapped. Daddy handled all that. No, I said quietly. I did. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every tax bill, all from my little job that you love to mock. The crowd began to whisper. Zaylee's hands were shaking as she filmed. I have proof, I continued, pulling out more documents. Bank transfers, payment records, legal papers. Would anyone like to see them? They make for fascinating reading. Marley, Dad spoke for the first time, his voice cracking. I don't understand. It was simple, really, I said, looking directly into Zaylee's camera. While everyone was busy praising Simone's adventures and mocking my boring career, I was quietly saving our family home. And now you want to sell it for a wedding? I turned to Simone and Rhett. I'm afraid that won't be possible. But don't worry, I'm sure you can find a more modest venue, something within your actual budget. Then I placed the microphone gently on the stage and walked toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of stunned faces and dropped jaws. Holy shit, I heard Zaylee whisper into her phone. Did that just happen? Yes, it did, and I wasn't done yet. The pounding on my front door started at 2 a.m. I'd been waiting for it, sitting in my darkened living room with a glass of wine, watching Zaylee's video go viral. Open this door right now, Simone's voice echoed through the hallway. I know you're in there. I took my time walking to the door, unlocking it slowly. Simone burst in, mascara streaked down her face, still wearing her party dress. How could you? She screamed. How could you humiliate us like that? Humiliate you? I kept my voice level. By telling the truth? You did it on purpose. At my engagement party. In front of everyone. She paced my living room, her heels leaving marks on my hardwood floor. Do you know what people are saying? Rhett won't even answer my calls. Funny how quickly he disappeared when he realized there was no house to cash in on. Simone whirled to face me. This was supposed to be my moment, my special day. But you couldn't stand it, could you? You had to make it all about you. No, I said quietly. For 5 years, I made everything about you. About Mom, about Dad. I kept you all afloat while you treated me like dirt. You called me wallpaper, Simone, to my face, in front of hundreds of people. It was a joke. Was it funny when I paid $8,000 for a new furnace? Or when I refinanced the house in secret to stop the foreclosure? How about when I worked overtime during COVID to cover the property taxes while you posted Instagram stories about being bored in the Maldives? She collapsed onto my couch, her party dress pooling around her. Why didn't you just tell us? Would you have listened? Would Mom have stopped comparing us long enough to hear me? Would Dad have accepted help from his disappointing eldest daughter? That's not fair, she whispered. No, it wasn't fair. None of it was fair. I sat down across from her. But I did it anyway, because that's what the boring, reliable sister does, right? keeps everything together while everyone else lives their best life? My phone buzzed. Another notification. Zaylee's video had passed 100,000 views. Mom's devastated, Simone said. She had to leave the party early. Her friends keep calling. Good. How can you be so cold? Cold? I laughed. I spent 5 years silently supporting this family. That's not cold. That's devotion. What's cold is planning to sell my house without even asking me. We didn't know it was yours. Would it have mattered if you did? Simone's silence was answer enough. The real estate agent you met with yesterday, I continued. She called me this morning. Apparently she was quite surprised to learn the property wasn't actually available for sale. The wedding deposits are non-refundable, Simone said quietly. That sounds like a you problem. She stood up suddenly. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Finally getting your revenge on perfect little Simone? I'm not enjoying any of it, I replied, but I'm not apologizing either. You've ruined everything. No, I just stopped letting you ruin me. Simone grabbed her purse, mascara still streaming down her face. You know what? Keep the stupid house. Keep your moral high ground, but you've lost your family. I lost my family years ago, I said. I just finally stopped pretending otherwise. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I picked up my phone, watching the view count climb on Zaylee's video. The comments were flooding in. Queen behavior. The quiet ones always have receipts. That sister had it coming. Most satisfying revenge ever. Another text came through from Dad. Can we talk tomorrow, please? I stared at his message for a long moment before replying, Coffee shop on Main, 9 a.m. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank account. The mortgage payment that had gone through automatically every month for 5 years was conspicuously absent. The money was mine now, to spend however I wanted. My phone buzzed again, Christine this time. Just saw Simone leave your building, you okay? I'm fine, I typed back. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm free. And for the first time in 5 years, I truly was. The weight of secret payments and silent sacrifices lifted from my shoulders. Let them deal with the consequences of their actions for once. I poured myself another glass of wine and settled back into my chair, watching the sunrise through my window. Tomorrow would bring more confrontations, more drama, more fallout. But tonight I could finally breathe. Dad was already at the coffee shop when I arrived, looking older than I'd ever seen him. 2 cups sat on the table. He remembered I liked my coffee black. You look tired, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. Couldn't sleep. He pushed my coffee toward me. Your mother took sleeping pills. She's still in bed. And Simone? Rhett called off the engagement this morning. Said he needed time to reevaluate. Dad's mouth twisted. Funny how quickly he disappeared when the money did. Not funny at all, I said. Just predictable. We sat in silence for a moment, both staring into our cups. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. About the mortgage, the refinancing, all of it? Would you have let me help if I had? He flinched. I was supposed to take care of you girls, not the other way around. Yeah, well, life doesn't always go according to plan. The signature on the refinancing papers, he said quietly. That wasn't really mine, was it? I met his eyes. No. He nodded slowly. I should have known. The bank suddenly becoming understanding about the payments, the insurance covering all those repairs. It was too convenient. I did what I had to do. You shouldn't have had to do any of it. His voice cracked. I failed you, Marley. As a father, as a provider. Dad, no, let me finish. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I found this in my desk last night. I wrote it 3 years ago on your birthday, but I never had the courage to give it to you. I opened the envelope. The paper inside was creased, the ink slightly faded. Dear Marley, I see you. I see how you keep us all together while asking nothing in return. I see the quiet strength that your mother mistakes for weakness. I see the sacrifices you make that Simone takes for granted. I'm sorry I'm not brave enough to say this in person. I'm sorry I let my pride keep me silent. Most of all, I'm sorry I let you carry this burden alone. You deserved better from me. Love, Dad. My hand shook as I folded the letter. Why didn't you send it? Because admitting I saw what you were doing meant admitting my own failure. He wiped his eyes. It was easier to pretend. Until now. Until now, he agreed. Zaylee's video has over 1 million views. Everyone knows. My phone buzzed. Another notification. I glanced at it. Your story has been shared in our Justice Served. Mom's friends keep calling, Dad continued. The country club is buzzing, and Simone. I know. She came to my apartment last night. She told me what you said about losing your family years ago. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Were we really that blind? You were that comfortable, I corrected. It was easier to let me handle everything while pretending nothing was wrong. I have no right to ask this, he said slowly. But what happens now? With the house? I'm meeting with a real estate agent next week. Not Mom's agent, my own. You're selling it? Maybe. Or renting it out? Either way, it's my decision now. He nodded, squeezing my hand. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Not just for last night, but for everything. For being stronger than I ever was. Dad, no, let me say this. You're not the disappointing daughter. You never were. We were the disappointing parents. My phone buzzed again. A text from Zaylee. OMG, cuz, you're trending. Everyone's calling you the revenge accountant. Dad saw the message and actually laughed. Revenge accountant? Well, I suppose there are worse titles. Could have been worse, I agreed. They could have called me wallpaper again. His face darkened. What Simone said at the party, that wasn't right. No, it wasn't. None of it was right. I stood up, gathering my purse. But it's done now. Will you? He hesitated. Will you keep in touch, even if you sell the house? I looked at my father, really looked at him, the proud man who'd raised me, broken by failure, finally seeing me clearly. Coffee, I said. Once a week, just us. His smile was watery but real. I'd like that. As I walked to my car, another text came through, from Mom. I didn't open it. Some conversations could wait. For now, this one was enough. You've gone viral, Christine said, scrolling through her phone. Like, seriously viral. There are TikTok recreations of your speech. We were sitting in my office during lunch break, watching the fallout unfold. My email inbox was flooded with messages from distant relatives and strangers alike. Listen to this one, Christine continued. Dear Revenge Accountant, you're my hero. I showed your video to my sister who's been mooching off our parents for years. She finally got a job interview tomorrow. My phone rang. Again. Mom's number. Again. I declined it. Again. That's the 8th time today, I noted. She's getting persistent. Have you read any of her texts? I pulled up the latest one. Darling, please. The ladies at the club are asking questions. We need to discuss damage control. Damage control, I scoffed. That's all she cares about. My office door opened. My boss, Sandra, stepped in. Marley, got a minute? I followed her to her office, expecting the worst. The video had made local news. Surely the firm wouldn't want this kind of attention. So, Sandra said, closing the door. I saw the video. I can explain. No need. She smiled. Actually, we've had 3 potential clients call this morning, specifically requesting the accountant from the video. Apparently, they want someone who's thorough with documentation. I blinked. Really? Really? How would you feel about taking on some bigger clients? Maybe even making partner track? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Rhett's engaged. To someone else, already. I hope you're happy. Everything okay? Sandra asked. Family drama, I said. Still ongoing. Take the afternoon off, she suggested. Handle what you need to. We'll discuss the promotion tomorrow. Back at my desk, Christine was still reading messages. Your cousin Zaylee's follower count tripled. She's getting sponsorship offers. At least someone's benefiting, I muttered, showing her Simone's text. Wow, Christine whistled. That was fast, even for Rhett. He found another house to cash in on, I'm sure. My phone rang again, but this time it was the real estate agent. Ms. Spencer, I have 3 offers on the house already, all over asking price. Word got out about the video, and apparently everyone wants the revenge property. I laughed despite myself. The revenge property? It's got quite the story now. These offers are serious. We should meet soon. After hanging up, I turned to Christine. Want to help me pack up the house this weekend? Absolutely, but first look at this. She held up her phone, showing me a local news website. The headline read, Local Woman's Viral Revenge Reveals Hidden Family Financial Abuse. Financial abuse? I echoed. They're calling you a spokesperson for hidden domestic labor and financial exploitation. There's a whole Twitter thread about how your story exposes systemic. A knock at my office door interrupted her. A delivery man stood there with a massive flower arrangement. Delivery for Marley Spencer? The card read, To my daughter. I'm sorry I didn't see your value sooner. Love, Dad. Well, Christine said softly. That's new. My phone buzzed again. An email from a publishing agent. Your story has resonated with millions. Would you be interested in writing a book about financial empowerment and family dynamics? This is getting ridiculous, I muttered. No, Christine corrected. This is karma. Sweet, viral karma. Another text from Mum. People are unfollowing me on Instagram. Please, we need to present a united front. I deleted it without responding. You know what the craziest part is? I said to Christine. I didn't do this for fame or revenge or any kind of message. I just couldn't take being invisible anymore. Sometimes the most powerful messages are the ones we didn't plan to send. My office phone rang. The front desk. Ms. Spencer? There's a Mrs. Spencer here to see you. She says she's your mother. I looked at Christine, who raised her eyebrows. Your call. Tell her I'm in a meeting, I said, and will be all afternoon. Running away? Christine asked. No, I replied, gathering my things. Setting boundaries. I'm done being available whenever they need me. Speaking of boundaries, Christine grinned. Want to look at condos this weekend? After we pack up the revenge property? I smiled, looking at the flower arrangement from Dad, the promotion offer on my desk, and the dozens of supportive messages flooding my phone. You know what? Yes, it's time for a fresh start. The Revenge Accountant's new chapter, Christine teased. Stop calling me that. Never. You're trending. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in days. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about finally being seen. The keys felt heavy in my hand as I locked the front door of my childhood home for the last time. The sold sign in the yard caught the morning light. A final punctuation mark on this chapter of my life. Need help with that last box? Christine called from her car. No, I've got it. I carried the small box, filled with the only items I'd kept from the house, to my car. Dad's letter was on top, along with a few family photos from happier times. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. They're demolishing the house next week. The new owners are building something modern. Happy now? I didn't respond. Instead, I opened Instagram, where Zaylee had posted a final photo of the house. End of an era. But some endings are really beginnings. Proud of you, cuz. The comments were still flowing in, even weeks after the video. Best revenge story ever. She really said watch me and showed them all. Financial queen energy. My phone rang. Mom's weekly attempt at contact. This time I answered. Darling, she started, her voice artificially bright. I just drove by the house. There's a sign. Yes, I sold it, above asking price. Without consulting the family? It wasn't the family's house to consult about. A pause. We could have worked something out, found a compromise. Like what? Letting Simone have her dream wedding in exchange for my lifetime of payments? That's not a compromise, Mom. That's exploitation. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being honest. There's a difference. I got into my car. I have to go. Where? To your new condo? The one you wouldn't tell us about? Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and started the engine. Christine followed in her car as we drove through the neighborhood one last time. At the coffee shop where Dad and I now met weekly, he was waiting with our usual order. All done? He asked as I sat down. All done. The new owners take possession tomorrow. He nodded, sliding an envelope across the table. I know you don't need it, but I've been saving. It's not much, but it's 5 years of mortgage payments. What I should have been paying. Dad, no. Please, let me do this one thing right. I opened the envelope. Inside was also a small key. What's this? To my new apartment, he said quietly. Your mother. We're separating. She doesn't know I'm telling you yet. Dad, it's not because of you, he added quickly. Well, not entirely. Your video just made me realize how long I've been pretending. In my marriage, in my business, with my children. Are you okay? He smiled, a real smile, not the strained one I'd grown up with. Getting there. The weekly coffee helps. My phone buzzed again. An email from my publisher. Final draft received. The Invisible Daughter, a memoir of family, finance, and finding your voice goes to print next month. Still can't believe you wrote a book, Dad chuckled. Still can't believe people want to read it. I read the advance copy you sent, he said. It was hard, but honest. That's what I promised myself I'd be from now on. Honest, Christine texted. Your new place is ready. Movers just finished. Want to get lunch after your coffee? Go, Dad said, seeing the message. Start your new chapter. I stood, then hesitated. Same time next week? Wouldn't miss it. Outside, the autumn air was crisp with possibility. My new condo was across town, in a quiet neighborhood where nobody knew me as the revenge accountant or the viral video girl or the disappointing daughter. Christine was waiting in the parking lot. Ready? Almost. I pulled out my phone and opened Mum's contact. After a moment's hesitation, I didn't block her, but I did mute her notifications. That's growth, Christine observed. It's boundaries, I corrected. I'm done being available 24/7 for other people's emergencies. Speaking of emergencies, Christine grinned. Your travel agent called. Your tickets to Europe are confirmed. I smiled, thinking of the trip I'd always dreamed of but never taken, too busy saving money for family crises. You know what the best revenge really is? I said as we drove toward my new home. Finally putting yourself first. That, Christine agreed, and going viral, exposing your entitled family doesn't hurt either. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. The house was sold, the book was finished, and my carefully maintained facade of family peace was finally, thankfully shattered. I didn't get my family back, but I got myself back, and that was finally enough.
The moment I heard the champagne cork pop, I knew this baby shower would be my breaking point. 7 years of swallowing their backhanded comments. 7 years of protecting a secret that wasn't mine to keep. My name is Faith, and this is how I finally stopped being the Morgan family doormat. To my beautiful sister Hallie, Stephen raised his glass, his perfect smile never wavering. You're going to be an amazing mother. I gripped my champagne flute tighter, watching my husband toast his pregnant sister while 20 pairs of eyes deliberately avoided looking in my direction. The country club's garden room buzzed with expensive perfume and judgment. Open this one next. Linda, my mother-in-law, thrust a pink-wrapped package into Hallie's hands. It's from your cousin Rachel. Hallie tore through the paper, revealing a tiny onesie with Mommy's Little Miracle embroidered across the front. A card fluttered to the ground. Oh, let me read it. Linda snatched up the card before anyone else could move. To the real woman of the family, you'll be such a wonderful mother. Isn't that precious? The room fell silent. I felt the familiar burn of tears threatening to spill, but forced them back. Not here. Not now. Well, Hallie giggled, shooting me a look that could freeze hell. I guess some of us were just born for motherhood. I waited for Stephen to say something. Anything. He just sipped his champagne, suddenly fascinated by the flower arrangements. Faith, dear. Linda's voice dripped with fake concern. Have you considered seeing that specialist I mentioned? Dr. Harrison has worked miracles for women with your condition. I appreciate your concern, Linda, I managed, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. But my medical decisions are private. Private? Hallie snorted. Nothing's private when it comes to family. We're all just worried about you. And Stephen, of course. He'd make such an amazing father. My husband shifted uncomfortably in his chair. If they only knew about his secret vasectomy 5 years ago. If they knew about the countless fertility tests I'd endured to maintain his lie. Speaking of Stephen, Linda continued, I was talking to Margaret at church, and her daughter just had her 3rd baby. Remember Jessica? She was in your year at school, Stephen. Such a fertile family. Mom, Stephen warned half-heartedly, but the damage was done. Juliana, my best friend and saving grace, squeezed my hand under the table. She was the only one who knew the truth. Maybe we should open more presents. Abel, Hallie's husband, attempted to diffuse the tension. Poor guy had no idea what he'd married into. Of course, Linda clapped her hands. Faith, be a dear and collect the gift bows for the rehearsal bouquet. I stood up, mechanical smile in place, and reached for a discarded bow. That's when I heard it. Hallie's stage whisper to her friend Marley. God, can you imagine if I turned out like her? Daddy would be so disappointed. At least one daughter can give him grandchildren. The bow crumpled in my fist. 7 years of secrets. 7 years of taking their abuse to protect Stephen's fragile ego. 7 years of watching him stand silently by while his family tore me apart. Actually, I heard myself say, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, I think I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Must be something going around. Oh no! Linda's concern was as fake as her highlights. You're not coming down with what you had at Easter, or Christmas, or Hallie's engagement party? Scattered laughter rippled through the room. I caught Stephen's eye, saw the warning there. Keep quiet. Keep the peace. Keep the secret. I grabbed my purse and stood up straight, channeling every ounce of dignity I had left. Congratulations, Hallie. I'm sure you'll be exactly the kind of mother everyone expects you to be. The walk to my car was a blur. My hands shook as I fumbled with the keys, but I managed to hold it together until I was safely inside. Then I saw it, the invitation to next month's Morgan family reunion, stuck mockingly to my dashboard. That's when something inside me snapped. They wanted to know why I hadn't given them a grandchild? Fine. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to Juliana. Remember when you said I should stop protecting him? You were right. Time to show the Morgans what a real woman looks like. I started the car, a plan already forming in my mind. They thought I was weak, pathetic, less than, but they were about to learn that the quiet ones, the ones who sit back and observe, who keep the secrets and weather the storms, those are the ones you should fear the most, because we know where all the bodies are buried. And I was done being their gravedigger. You're going to need a stronger drink than that, Juliana said, sliding a shot of tequila across her kitchen counter. The wine I'd been nursing wasn't cutting it. I can't believe I let it go on this long. I knocked back the shot, welcoming the burn. 7 years, Jules. 7 years of tests, treatments, and tears while he just watched. Start from the beginning. Juliana pulled up a stool. You've never told me exactly what happened. I traced the rim of the empty shot glass. Remember when Stephen and I first got married? How excited Linda was about grandchildren. God, yes. She had baby names picked out before you even said, I do. Well, after 6 months of trying, Stephen suggested we see a fertility specialist. I thought he was being proactive, supportive even. I laughed bitterly. Turns out, he already knew exactly what the problem was. The vasectomy, Juliana whispered. He had it done 3 months after our wedding. 3 months, Jules. While I was still writing thank you notes for our wedding gifts, he was making sure we could never have children. But the fertility treatments, all for show. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through years of calendar entries. Look at this. Hormone therapy, invasive tests, experimental procedures. I went through hell while he sat there in doctors' offices, playing the concerned husband. Why didn't you expose him then? Because I loved him, my voice cracked. Because he cried and told me his family would disown him if they knew. He said he'd never wanted children, that his parents had pushed him into this perfect son role his whole life. I felt sorry for him. Juliana refilled our shots. And now? I pulled up the photos I discovered last week. Now I know he was screwing Hallie's best friend Marley while I was injecting myself with hormones that made me sick. Juliana nearly choked on her drink. Marley? The one from the baby shower? The very same. Want to know the best part? She's pregnant? No. Yes. But here's where it gets interesting. I leaned forward. Remember my friend Annalise, who works at the medical center? She called me yesterday. Seems Stephen's been trying to bribe someone to falsify his medical records. He wants all evidence of his vasectomy erased. Holy shit! Juliana grabbed my hand. Faith, you have to tell them everything. Oh, I will. I pulled out a USB drive. I've been collecting evidence for years without even realizing it. Every medical bill, every appointment, every treatment he insisted I try. And now, thanks to his sloppy password habits, I have every email between him and Marley. What are you going to do? The doorbell rang before I could answer. We both jumped. That'll be Annalise, I said, checking my watch. I asked her to bring something. Juliana opened the door, and Annalise rushed in, clutching a manila envelope. You won't believe what I found, she said, spreading papers across the counter. Stephen came to the clinic last week, offering our records clerk $5,000 to lose his file. Did she take it? No, but she did make copies of everything first. Annalise pointed to a document. Look at the date. He had the vasectomy exactly 3 months after your wedding. It was planned, Faith. He never intended to have children with you. I felt strangely calm as I examined the proof of my husband's betrayal. You know what the worst part is? I would have understood if he'd just been honest. We could have adopted, used a donor, or even chosen to be child-free. But he let his family destroy me instead. So what's the plan? Juliana asked, studying my face. I pulled out the invitation to the Morgan family reunion. They're having their annual gathering next month. Everyone will be there. Linda, Yahir, Hallie, even precious Marley. You're not... I am. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. But first, we need to lay some groundwork. Linda needs to start doubting her perfect son. Hallie needs to get suspicious of her best friend. And Stephen... I held up the medical records. Stephen needs to realize that his carefully constructed house of cards is about to come crashing down. Faith, Annalise said carefully, are you sure about this? Once you start, there's no going back. I thought about the baby shower, about 7 years of humiliation and lies, about the woman I used to be, the one who believed in protecting others at the cost of herself. They wanted a show? I gathered the documents, carefully organizing them into my file. I'll give them a fucking Broadway production. Juliana raised her shot glass. To karma? No, I corrected her, clinking my glass against hers. To truth. It's time the Morgans learned what that word really means. You're being ridiculous, Faith. Stephen's voice carried across Linda's immaculate dining room. Mom just wants what's best for us. I pushed my untouched salmon around my plate, watching Linda beam at her son from across the table. Sunday family dinner had become an Olympic sport in passive aggression. What's best for us? I set down my fork. Was it best when she suggested I try essential oils for my barren womb last week? Don't be dramatic, Hallie interjected, one hand resting on her growing belly. Mom's just excited about becoming a grandmother. Finally. The emphasis on finally made my blood boil. I caught Marley shifting uncomfortably in her seat next to Hallie, avoiding eye contact with everyone, especially Stephen. Speaking of grandchildren, Linda chirped, I ran into Jessica's mother at the club yesterday. She's expecting her fourth. Some women are just naturally blessed that way. Mother, Stephen warned, but his tone lacked conviction. Same old pattern. Pretend to defend me, then let them continue their attack. What? Linda's innocent act wouldn't fool a toddler. I'm simply saying some women are more suited for motherhood than others. I took a slow sip of wine. You're right, Linda. Some women are more suited for certain roles, like being honest with their families. Stephen's head snapped up. Marley's fork clattered against her plate. What's that supposed to mean? Hallie demanded. Nothing, Stephen cut in quickly. Faith's just being sensitive again. Sensitive? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make Linda flinch. Is that what we're calling it now? Maybe, Hallie said, her voice dripping with venom. If you spent less time being sensitive and more time focusing on your fertility issues, you wouldn't be in this situation. Hallie, Abel finally spoke up, looking horrified at his wife's words. No, Abel. Let her finish. I turned to Hallie. What situation would that be exactly? Well, Hallie glanced at her mother for support. If you can't fulfill your role as a wife, maybe you should consider other options. Are you suggesting divorce? I kept my voice steady, even as I felt Stephen tense beside me. She's not suggesting anything, Linda interrupted. But darling, you have to admit, Stephen deserves a chance at fatherhood. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and clicked send. Interesting perspective, Linda. Almost as interesting as the medical records I just forwarded to your husband. The color drained from Stephen's face. Across the table, Yahir's phone buzzed. What records? Stephen's voice cracked. Oh, just some paperwork I've been collecting. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Yahir, you might want to pay special attention to the dates, particularly the one from 3 months after your son's wedding. Faith! Stephen grabbed my arm. What are you doing? I yanked free. Taking your mother's advice. Being less sensitive. I don't understand. Linda looked between us. What records? Ask your perfect son, I said, grabbing my purse. Ask him about his secret surgery. Ask him why I really can't give you grandchildren. Stephen? Linda's voice had lost its smug edge. What is she talking about? Nothing, he stammered. She's lying. She's just bitter about... About what? I cut him off. About the fertility treatments you watched me endure? About the hormones that made me sick? About the thousands we spent on specialists when you knew exactly why I couldn't get pregnant? Yahir looked up from his phone, his face ashen. Stephen, what did you do? I should go. Marley suddenly stood, nearly knocking over her water glass. Sit down, I said quietly. We wouldn't want you to stress yourself out in your condition. The room went deadly silent. Hallie's head whipped toward her best friend. What condition? Faith, please, Stephen begged. Please what? Keep your secrets? Protect your reputation? I walked to the door, then turned back. You know what's funny? I would have kept every single one of your secrets if you just stood up for me once. Just once. I don't understand what's happening. Linda's voice had lost its authority, replaced by confusion and fear. Don't worry, Linda, you will. I smiled, channeling every fake expression of concern she'd ever given me. In fact, I think it's time everyone understood exactly what's been happening in your perfect family. Where are you going? Stephen called after me. To my lawyer's office. I have a few more documents to add to my file. I paused in the doorway. Oh, and Marley, you might want to tell Hallie about last month's doctor's appointment before someone else does. After all, nothing's private when it comes to family, right? I closed the door on their stunned faces, but not before I heard Hallie's shrill voice. Marley, what is she talking about? What doctor's appointment? In my car, my hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with messages from Stephen, but I ignored them. Instead, I called Juliana. How did it go? She asked. Phase 1 complete, I said, starting the engine. Now we wait for the bomb to explode. And then we light the fuse for the grand finale. I found Stephen in his home office that night, frantically deleting emails. The soft glow of his computer screen illuminated the panic on his face. A bit late for spring cleaning, isn't it? I leaned against the doorframe. He jumped, nearly knocking over his whiskey glass. Jesus, Faith! I thought you were staying at Juliana's. Clearly. I walked over and perched on the edge of his desk. Having trouble with your inbox? This isn't funny. His voice trembled. What you did at dinner? You had no right. No right? I picked up his whiskey and took a sip. Like you had no right to make me think I was broken for 7 years? I never said you were broken. No, you just let your family say it instead. I set down the glass. The vasectomy was your choice, Stephen. I could have accepted that. What I can't accept is that you stood there, silent, while I went through hell. I was protecting us. You were protecting yourself. I pulled out my phone. Just like you're protecting yourself with Marley. The color drained from his face. What are you talking about? Really? That's the route you want to take? I opened my photos and held up the screen. Because I have some interesting security camera footage from the Golden Grove Hotel that suggests otherwise. You had me followed? I didn't have to. The front desk manager is my college roommate. She called me 3 weeks ago, concerned about my husband checking in with a pregnant woman who wasn't his wife. Stephen slumped in his chair. Faith, I can explain. Can you explain this too? I played the audio recording. Marley's voice filled the room. What are we going to do? Hallie's going to figure it out soon. I can't keep wearing loose clothes forever. Turn it off, Stephen whispered. Why? Isn't this what you wanted? A baby? Or does it only count if it's with someone your mother approves of? You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, I stood up. How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to keep lying to me while starting a secret family with your sister's best friend? I never meant to hurt you. Bullshit, my voice cracked. You hurt me every single day for 7 years. Every time your mother made a snide comment about my fertility. Every time Hallie flaunted her pregnancy. Every time you let them tear me down to protect your precious secret. What do you want from me? He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I want you to feel what I felt. I walked to the door. I want you to watch everything you built crumble around you just like I did. Are you going to tell Hallie? No, I smiled. You are. What? You have 24 hours to tell Hallie about the baby, about the affair, about everything. I checked my watch. If you don't, I'll do it for you. And trust me, my version will be much less flattering. You're bluffing. I pulled out a USB drive. Try me. I have every email, every hotel receipt, every secret meeting documented. I even have the security footage of you trying to bribe the medical records clerk. Faith, please. He stood up, desperation in his eyes. We can work this out. I'll do anything. Anything? I laughed. Like what? Stand up to your mother? Tell the truth about your vasectomy? Be a man for once in your life? His face hardened. You've changed. No, I've woken up. I tossed the USB drive onto his desk. 24 hours, Stephen. Tick-tock. As I walked out, my phone buzzed. A message from Marley. We need to talk. Hallie's asking questions. I typed back, better hurry. Your time's running out. Another buzz, this time from Hallie. What did you mean about Marley's condition? She's not answering my calls. I smiled and put my phone away. The dominoes were falling exactly as planned. Stephen would panic, try to damage control. Marley would crack under pressure. Hallie would piece it together. And Linda? Linda would have to watch her perfect family implode. Back in our bedroom, I started packing a suitcase. Not because I planned to leave, not yet, but because I wanted Stephen to see it, to feel the fear I'd felt all these years. My phone buzzed again. Juliana, you okay? I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. For the first time in years, I didn't see the woman they'd tried to break. I saw someone stronger, someone who'd finally stopped swallowing other people's lies. Better than okay, I texted back. The truth is finally coming out. And then what? I heard Stephen's footsteps on the stairs, heavy with dread. And then, I typed, we watch it all burn. Have you seen Marley? Hallie cornered me in the office parking lot 3 days later. Her mascara was smeared, hands shaking as she clutched her phone. She's not answering anyone's calls. Really? I adjusted my sunglasses. That's strange. Have you asked your brother? Stephen? Why would he? Her voice trailed off. What aren't you telling me? I think you already know, Hallie. I opened my car door. You're just afraid to say it out loud. She's my best friend, Hallie's voice cracked. She wouldn't... Like you wouldn't mock your sister-in-law at her own baby shower? I slid into the driver's seat. People surprise you. I left her standing there, one hand on her pregnant belly, the other still clutching her silent phone. Phase 2 was proceeding exactly as planned. Back at my desk, Annalise rushed over with a coffee. You won't believe what just happened. Stephen tried to access his medical records again. Let me guess. He wanted to check if they were still there? Better. She leaned in close. He offered the clerk $10,000 this time. Cash. I smiled, opening my laptop. And she reported him to the medical board. They're launching an investigation. Perfect. I pulled up my email and clicked send on a message I'd prepared days ago. Speaking of investigations, what did you just do? Sent an anonymous tip to Linda's country club friends about some interesting charges on Stephen's credit card. I sipped my coffee. The Golden Grove Hotel isn't exactly discreet with their billing descriptions. My phone buzzed. Linda's name flashed on the screen. Faith! Her voice was tight with forced politeness. We need to talk. About Stephen. Oh? I kept my tone neutral. What about him? These rumors. These horrible stories people are spreading. You have to help us stop them. Rumors? I checked my watch. Right on schedule. Like the rumor about him checking into hotels with pregnant women who aren't his wife? Silence. Or maybe the rumor about him trying to bribe medical staff? Those kinds of rumors, Linda? This isn't funny. Her voice cracked. Our family's reputation. Your family's reputation was built on lies. I cut her off. And lies have a way of coming out. What do you want? Want? I laughed. I want 7 years of my life back. I want every tear I cried over your cruel comments back. I want every dollar spent on fertility treatments back. We can pay you. I don't want your money, Linda. I want the truth. All of it. In front of everyone. She hung up. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. Stephen, Hallie, even Yahir. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my truth file folder and added today's recordings. Everything meticulously documented, dated, backed up. 7 years of evidence, building to one moment. Juliana appeared at my desk. Hallie just called me crying about Marley. Did she figure it out? Almost. She said Marley finally answered her texts, said she's leaving town for a while, needs space. I nodded, running away, just like I predicted. Her faith! Juliana lowered her voice. Are you sure about this? It's getting messy. It was always messy. I showed her my phone. Look what Steven just texted. Please stop this. I'll do anything. What are you going to do? Nothing. I deleted his message. He had his chance to tell the truth. Now it's my turn. My phone buzzed again. An email from my lawyer. Documents ready for review. Meeting tomorrow at 9? Perfect timing, I typed back. Annalise returned with more coffee. Security called. Steven's downstairs demanding to see you. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Good. Time for the next phase. In the lobby, Steven paced like a caged animal. Faith, please, let's talk about this. Now you want to talk? I kept my voice low, professional. After 7 years of silence, I'll tell them everything. The vasectomy, all of it. Just not about Marley. Please. Why? I stepped closer. Because she's carrying what I never could? Your miracle baby? His face crumpled. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I pulled out my phone, showed him the email from my lawyer. In exactly 1 month, at your family reunion, everything comes out. Every lie, every betrayal, every secret. You'll destroy us all. No, Steven. I walked toward the elevator. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. As the doors closed, I caught his reflection in the mirror. The golden boy, finally tarnished. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Marley. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Too late for sorry. The truth was coming, and it would burn everything in its path. Something's wrong with Marley. Hallie ambushed me outside the grocery store, her eyes red from crying. She's not returning my calls, and when I went to her apartment, her neighbor said she hasn't been home in days. I loaded my groceries into my trunk. Have you asked your brother about it? What does Steven have to do with... Her face went pale. No, you're not suggesting... I'm not suggesting anything. I closed the trunk. But it's interesting that they both started acting strange around the same time, isn't it? Stop it. Hallie grabbed my arm. Just stop with these mind games. What do you know? Why don't you ask Steven about the Golden Grove Hotel? I gently removed her hand. Or better yet, ask your mother why she's been calling my lawyer. Hallie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then froze. It's Marley. She's at the women's clinic across town. She says she needs me. Better hurry then. I got into my car. Wouldn't want to keep your best friend waiting, especially in her condition. I watched in my rearview mirror as Hallie's hand instinctively went to her own pregnant belly, realization dawning on her face. At home, Linda was waiting on my doorstep. This has gone far enough, she said as I carried my groceries inside. She followed uninvited. Whatever Steven did, whatever you think you know, think I know. I set the bags on the counter. Linda, I have proof of everything. Would you like to see it? You're just trying to hurt us because you can't have children. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. Still clinging to that story, even after seeing Steven's medical records? Those records could be fake. Really? I pulled out my phone. Should we call the medical board? I'm sure they'd love to hear about Steven's attempts to bribe their staff. Linda sank into a kitchen chair. What do you want from us? The truth. I started unpacking groceries, calm as could be. All of it, in front of everyone. You'll destroy this family. No, Linda. Your precious son did that when he chose lies over honesty. When he let you torture me for years over something that was his choice, his secret. My phone buzzed. A text from Hallie. Oh my God. Oh my God. She's pregnant. Marley's pregnant. Another buzz. Steven. Hallie knows. Please. We need to talk. Looks like the truth is already starting to come out. I showed Linda the messages. Tick-tock. This will kill Hallie, Linda whispered. Like watching her mock me at her baby shower almost killed me. I leaned across the counter. Like every snide comment about my barren womb almost killed me? Linda's phone rang. Hallie's picture flashed on the screen. Better answer that, I said. Sounds like your perfect family needs damage control. She answered with shaking hands. Hallie, sweetheart, calm down. What do you mean Marley's pregnant? No, I'm sure there's an explanation. Stephen? Why would Stephen? I watched her face crumple as Hallie's hysterical voice carried through the speaker. 7 years of karma, delivered in one phone call. I'll be right there, Linda stood, her perfectly composed facade cracking. Faith, please. Please what? Keep quiet? Protect your family's reputation? I opened the door. Sorry, Linda. I'm done being your family's secret keeper. After she left, I called Juliana. It's happening. Hallie knows. How bad? Nuclear, I smiled, and the family reunion is still 2 weeks away. Are you ready for this? Once everything comes out, I've been ready for 7 years. I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation I'd been preparing. They wanted a show. They're getting one. My phone buzzed again. An email from Annalise. You need to see this. Stephen just tried to access the medical records again. This time he left a threat. Perfect. More evidence for my file. A knock at the door made me jump. It was Abel, Hallie's husband, looking shell-shocked. Is it true? He asked. About Marley and Stephen? I let him in. Would you like to see the proof? No. He sat heavily on my couch. I need to understand. How long have you known? Long enough. I sat across from him. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Hallie's devastated. She's talking about moving back home with her parents. And the family reunion? Linda wants to cancel it. I shook my head. Oh no. The show must go on. In fact, I pulled out my invitation. Make sure everyone comes. It's going to be unforgettable. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Enjoying? I thought about 7 years of pain, of silence, of shame. No, Abel, I'm not enjoying this. I'm finally getting justice. After he left, I added his visit to my documentation. 2 weeks until the reunion. 2 weeks until every lie, every secret, every moment of cruelty came to light. Let them run. Let them hide. The truth was coming, and this time, no one could stop it. The Morgan family reunion buzzed with nervous energy. Linda had tried to cancel it, of course, but tradition won out. Now they all sat in the country club's grand hall, picking at their food and avoiding eye contact. I adjusted the laptop connected to the projector, feeling Juliana squeeze my hand. You've got this. Stephen sat at the far end of the table, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. Hallie was absent, officially on bed rest, but we all knew she was hiding at her parents' house, devastated by her brother's betrayal. Marley, unsurprisingly, had fled the state. Before we start the usual speeches, I stood up, my voice carrying across the tense room. I'd like to make a toast. Linda's wine glass shook. Faith, please. To family, I continued, clicking the first slide. A wedding photo of Stephen and me filled the screen. To 7 years of lies, secrets, and shame. Don't do this, Stephen pleaded. Why not? I clicked to the next slide. My medical records, the fertility treatments, the hormone therapy bills. Afraid of everyone seeing the truth? What truth? You hear his voice cracked. Stephen, what is she talking about? Next slide. Stephen's vasectomy records, dated 3 months after our wedding. Gasps filled the room. The truth about why I could never give you grandchildren? I looked directly at Linda. The truth about why your perfect son watched me endure years of invasive treatments, knowing exactly why I couldn't get pregnant. Stephen, Linda's face had gone ash white. Tell me this isn't real. It's real, I clicked again. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, security camera stills. Just like his affair with Marley is real. Just like her pregnancy is real. The room erupted. Yahir stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. Linda covered her face with trembling hands. Various aunts and uncles muttered in shocked disapproval. I can explain, Stephen started. Explain what? I cut him off. How you let your family torture me for years? How you watched your mother suggest essential oils for my barren womb while knowing you'd had a vasectomy? You promised you wouldn't tell, he whispered. No, I protected your secret because I loved you, because I thought you'd eventually do the right thing. I clicked to the next slide, the medical board complaint about his bribery attempts. Instead, you tried to erase the evidence. Is this why Hallie won't leave her room? Linda's voice shook. Because her best friend and her brother betrayed her? Yes. I moved through the slides methodically. Just like Stephen betrayed me. Just like this entire family betrayed basic human decency every time you mocked me, shamed me, suggested I wasn't a real woman because I couldn't have children. We didn't know, Yahir protested. Didn't you? I played the audio recordings. Linda's voice filled the room, suggesting divorce if I couldn't fulfill my role. Hallie's cruel jokes at the baby shower, every cutting comment, every deliberate hurt. Turn it off, Linda begged. Why? Isn't this what family's about? Sharing everything? I clicked to the final slide, a copy of my divorce papers. No more secrets, no more lies, no more protecting people who never protected me. Stephen stood up. Faith, stop. Please. I'll do anything. Anything? I laughed. Like what? Stand up to your mother? Tell the truth? Be a man? It's too late for that. I loved you, he said. No, you loved your image, your family's reputation, their approval. I unplugged the laptop. Well, congratulations. It's all gone now. Linda suddenly rushed from the room, hand over her mouth. Yahir followed, looking years older than he had an hour ago. You've destroyed this family? An aunt accused. No, I corrected her. Your precious golden boy did that. I just exposed the rot beneath the shine. I gathered my things, feeling lighter than I had in years. Juliana stood beside me, a silent pillar of support. Faith, Stephen called as I reached the door. What happens now? I turned back one last time, taking in the wreckage of the perfect family facade. Now you get to feel what I felt, exposed, humiliated, alone. I smiled. Consider it my parting gift. Outside, the summer air felt clean, fresh. My phone buzzed with a message from Hallie. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve what we did to you. No, I typed back. I didn't. But at least now everyone knows the truth. Juliana linked her arm through mine as we walked to the car. How do you feel? I thought about the years of pain, the carefully gathered evidence, the calculated execution of my plan. Free, I said finally. I feel free. Behind us, through the country club's windows, I could see the family in chaos. Linda sobbing, Stephen slumped in defeat, relatives arguing and pointing fingers. 7 years of karma, delivered in one devastating presentation. They wanted to know what a real woman looked like? Well, now they knew. A real woman doesn't break. She gets even. You have a visitor. Juliana poked her head into my office. Should I tell her you're busy? I looked up from my laptop to see Hallie standing in the doorway, her baby bump now prominent. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her chin was set with determination. It's okay, I nodded. Let her in. Hallie sat carefully in the chair across from my desk. The divorce was finalized yesterday. I know. I closed my laptop. My lawyer called. Stephen's leaving town. She twisted her wedding ring. Moving to Seattle. Marley's already there. Following his pregnant mistress, I said. How noble of him. Mom's in therapy. Hallie's voice cracked. Dad moved out last week. Says he can't look at her the same after everything. I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. I've been thinking about the baby shower. Hallie finally continued, about all the cruel things I said, the way we treated you. Save your apology, I interrupted. I didn't do this for forgiveness. Then why? Because the truth matters. I pulled out my old medical files. Because every woman who's ever been shamed, blamed, or made to feel less than deserves to be heard. Hallie reached for the files with trembling hands. I found my own copies of these, the treatments, the procedures. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. How did you survive it? I almost didn't. I took the files back, but then I realized something. The shame wasn't mine to carry. It was yours. All of yours. My phone buzzed. A message from Linda. Please, we need to talk. I showed it to Hallie. Your mother's been texting daily. She's desperate to fix things. Hallie wiped her eyes. But you can't fix 7 years of cruelty with an apology. No, I agreed. You can't. I left Abel, Hallie said suddenly. After everything came out, I couldn't trust anyone anymore. That's not my problem. I know, she stood awkwardly. I wanted you to know that you opened my eyes to everything. As she reached the door, she turned back. The women's support group you started, the one for people dealing with toxic families. Is it okay if I come? I studied her face, no longer the smug, entitled princess, but someone broken and rebuilding. First meeting's Tuesday. Don't be late. After she left, Juliana brought me coffee. That was unexpected. The whole family's imploding. I showed her my phone. More messages from Linda, from Yahir, even from Stephen's aunts and uncles, all begging for reconciliation, for forgiveness, for a chance to explain. Are you going to respond? No. I deleted them all. They had 7 years to speak up. Now it's my turn to be silent. My computer pinged with a new email. The online support group I'd started had doubled in size overnight. Women sharing similar stories, finding strength in truth, breaking free from family shame. Your story went viral, Annalise said, joining us with printouts. 3 news outlets want interviews about toxic family dynamics and fertility stigma. Book them, I said. It's time more women spoke up. My phone rang. Stephen's number. I declined the call and pulled up his last text. I'm sorry for everything. You were stronger than all of us. Damn right I was, I muttered, blocking his number. Juliana perched on my desk. So what now? You've exposed the truth, started a movement, helped other women find their voice. Now? I opened my laptop, showing her the outline for my book. Now I make sure no other woman suffers in silence. No more family secrets, no more shame, no more protecting people who don't deserve protection. The Morgans won't like that. The Morgans don't matter anymore. I started typing. What matters is that somewhere, right now, another woman is sitting silent at a family dinner, swallowing her truth to keep the peace. And your story will help her find her voice, Juliana smiled. Exactly. I looked at the growing list of support group members, at the interview requests, at the messages from women sharing their own stories of family betrayal and redemption. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Marley. You were right. About everything. I'm having a girl. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned back to my laptop and typed the words I wish someone had told me 7 years ago. Your silence will not protect them. Your shame is not your burden. Your truth is your power. And a real woman doesn't break. She rises. She speaks. She shows others the way out of darkness. The cursor blinked, waiting for more. But I was done waiting, done being silent, done protecting lies. It was time for other women to find their voice, and I would help them, one truth at a time.